Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, we are back. I'm excited to see you once again. I haven't seen you since the bowl game, which is crazy. I feel like I've seen you since then, but I haven't. So excited to be back in the studio and podcasting with you today.
Yeah, it's weird. We were just talking about this off camera too. When we don't film an episode for a while, it feels like we're doing it again for the first time.
Yeah, a little bit.
But then it also, when we start pre-podding, it feels like, okay, we've been doing this for a while now.
I know.
But yeah, obviously last time we spoke was at the bowl game. Huge win for USC. We'll touch on that a little bit today. But overall, hope everybody had a great and happy New Year.
Yeah.
And what is it now, January 24th today? So
25th.
I guess we're a little late on that, but forgive us. We are back, but I'm excited for another episode and some big news with USC football today.
Yeah, I did take a vacation, so thank you, everyone, for your patience.
Much deserved. You deserve it.
Thank you. I'm taking vitamins and sleeping, so hopefully we have no sickness issues. I know that's an issue there, but
don't jinx us.
I'm sorry.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, but I just wanted to tell everyone so that they're proud of me.
Yeah, no.
But we're refreshed, finally recovered from the season, so excited to dive into this one, especially because we had some news while I was actually on vacation last week, so we can finally look at the 2024 staff as a whole that is now settled, including the defensive overhaul. So excited to go into that, talk about the Eric Henderson hire. That was a big one for USC.
Yeah, really
big. Curious to hear your thoughts, Cody. You always have such a extensive breakdown about people's past and whatnot, so excited to get into that. And then, as you mentioned, we haven't really talked about the bowl game, and I know it's old news, so you don't have to click off the podcast yet, but you were someone who was hyping up Miller a lot in the preview episode. And as a quarterback, I know that you guys have that brotherhood. I was really curious to see your thoughts on how Miller did and the future of USC in the quarterback position. So excited to kind of talk about that a little bit, not to rehash too much, but definitely want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, first of all, excited about the Henderson hire. Was amazing. Obviously, someone coming from the NFL level, Super Bowl winning coach. So I think that's a great hire for this defensive staff. Now it's set. Lincoln Riley's done an amazing job, and we've talked about throughout the season, you've got to be able to get a great defense, and that was some of the criticism for Coach Riley is, hey, you're a great offensive mind, one of the best in the entire country, but how are you going to attack this defensive problem, this defensive staff this offseason? Another great hire, and he's done a great job kind of completing that staff. And then, the game, I'm excited. It'll be like a shortened version of my breakdown of the games during season. So I'll talk a little bit of offensive defense, but overall, I want to just get into what that means for Miller Moss, what that game meant. Obviously, still a long road ahead before next season. Got to continue to prove it and be consistent in the offseason, but a huge, huge step forward. I was so pumped for him. I got to watch the game with Matt Leinart as well, so we were kind of talking throughout the game. Barry Sanders was there too.
Crazy.
And I'll talk about that a little bit too. I got some cool stories from that. I did a little event for DirecTV, but amazing game, right? 6 touchdowns, was on fire throughout the entire game. Had some big things that I saw too from him when things aren't going great, and we'll get into that. But yeah, I'm excited for this episode. I feel like I'm already getting into it a little bit.
And now we're back.
But yeah, we're back. I know. I feel like I've got a lot to say. It's been a while.
Okay, well, just a couple reminders, then I'll let you go. So don't worry. If you're liking what you're listening to, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to go above and beyond, you can leave a review on your podcasting app. It really helps the show grow, and we greatly appreciate everyone who does that. If you ever want to get your voice heard, look at our socials, Victory Pod USC. We usually put out a question box on Twitter and Instagram asking for any questions or comments you may have. We got to get to questions today in our episode as well, Cody. And then one final announcement. The giveaway winners. You have been so patient, and thank you so much for that. We finally shipped everything out. You will be getting your giveaway merch very soon. So we have that behind us now, Cody. Yeah. We are finally caught up. We were in the red a little bit as far as getting that out on time. So thank you to everyone's patience. And
just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Well, it was tough. And that's what I told some of the listeners, trying to order through the bookstore, going through that whole process, everything else going on. But you had to go in and individually buy every piece of merch, so we finally solved it.
It ended up being a little bit of a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
And I know no one cares, but
yeah, they just want their stuff.
We're up to
But
date.
again, we
That's
appreciate you waiting with us. I reached out to everybody who had asked, hey, where's my stuff? And everyone's polite about it. No one's demanding anything. But yes, between you and my wife, Paige, who sends all the boxes out and everything, I just sit there and sign the ones you guys tell me to sign. But between you two, amazing job. But yes, those are all going out. They've all been sent out. We are caught up now.
Perfect.
So we're good to go, and now we can just talk football.
Yes, the slate is clean, if you will.
Yeah, we're free. Yeah. If you can't tell, we were a little like
we were stressed about it.
I don't want you to think we're like, oh, we'll figure it out. We were constantly in contact about, hey, this isn't getting in time. This one's still missing. Like we've got to figure it all out, but we finally got it done, and hopefully you guys get those packages this week or early next week and enjoy your merch.
Alrighty, well, let's jump into the meat and potatoes of the show, if we will. We got to talk about the Eric Henderson hire. He was announced as the final defensive hire on January 15th. It was the day after the Rams lost to the Lions, so it kind of makes sense. You kind of have that in the works, but you want to make sure your season is over. And USC announced that obviously he would be joining the staff. He was named the co-defensive coordinator, run game coordinator, and defensive line coach. And with that announcement, we got some movement on the staff as well, in the sense that Sean Nua will now move from defensive line coach to defensive ends coach. So complete. USC keeps Sean Nua as part of the staff, which I was pretty excited about. I think he's a great coach, a great person as well, but I really have enjoyed what he's done over the last 2 years for USC. So I felt like this was a good way to get the guy you want, but also keep a guy who's been so strong in development and on the recruiting trail. So. Yeah,
and you said that perfectly. That was my first point, is I love that Coach Nua is sticking around, right? Yeah. And not only just what he's done for this team and you know what the coaching staff is with him a part of it, but also the way the players talk about him, right? When you hear the interviews, they love playing for Coach Nua. You love a player's coach, relatable, you know, obviously a guy who's been around the team for 2 years now. So I'm excited they're keeping him. But yeah, this was a huge hire for USC. Now, we'll get into this after I give you a little bit of his background, but the title, co-defensive coordinator, run game coordinator, defensive line coach, is that going to split time with Danton Lynn? Is it just kind of a title thing like we've talked about before? But either way, a huge hire for this staff. A little background for Coach Henderson. Has coached both at the college and NFL level, something that's been a trend, a younger coach, right? We've talked about that with some of the other coaches on this staff. Only 41 years of age, has been coaching since 2012. He's a graduate from Georgia Tech. First coaching job, and this is a little part of my fun fact. I like doing some of the research on these guys. But his first coaching job was at Georgia Military College.
Interesting.
As an outside linebacker coach, which is one of the top junior college programs in the entire country.
I did not know that.
I learned that yesterday.
Okay.
I didn't know that. But then he went to the D1 level after that as a GA at Oklahoma State. And then more recently, he's been in the NFL with the Los Angeles Rams, won a Super Bowl with the Rams as well. But from 2017, 2018 was the assistant D-line coach for the Rams. 2019 to 2020, got promoted to full-time D-line coach. And then 2021 to 2023, continued as a D-line coach, but also added run game coordinator to his title. Some of the stats while he was the defensive line coach with the Rams in 2021, had the sixth best run defense in all of the NFL, 103 yards per game, and they also had 50 sacks that year as a team. Now, I guess some of that is linebackers as well, but it starts up front in the trenches, which was third in the NFL. In 2022, again, was a top half in run defense, only allowing 115 yards per game. And then last year in 2023, again, top half, I think top 15, only allowing 106 yards per game. So some great numbers there, done a great job with that defensive line, coached some great players with the Los Angeles Rams, and in my opinion, probably one of, if not the best, defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman to ever play in the NFL, Aaron Donald. So I can't wait for Coach Henderson to be able to really teach the guys what he taught Aaron Donald, but also what he learned from Donald and how he can translate that to our players and what they can learn from each other.
It was fascinating. One, because I feel like he's a good Twitter presence. He's very active on Twitter, and I feel like that helps on the recruiting trail. And if you haven't noticed, USC's coaches are everywhere across America right now. Speaking of, this is a total tangent. I'm sorry. This is really weird. I said I was on vacation last week.
Yeah.
I was in the Salt Lake City airport walking this way and saw Coach Josh Henson walking the other way.
No way.
In the Salt Lake City airport at the same time. I was like, I can't escape USC football. But
hey, recruiting is a 12-month job, and it's 24/7.
If you doubted that they were actually there.
Especially with how,
I saw it.
But it was cool too on Twitter, talking about his Twitter presence, the photo that he posted as well with Aaron Donald wearing the SC. So hopefully we can get him out to a practice or something and talk to some of the guys. But yeah, it's cool. That's cool for recruiting though.
That's what I'm saying. It generates so much hype.
Yeah, and you see, hey, my defensive line coach, Coach Henderson, just posted a photo with Aaron Donald, who's repping USC, who lives in Los Angeles, who's not far away. Let me go learn from this guy. Let me go play for this guy. And obviously us going to the Big Ten, it all starts from the trenches out, in my opinion. You've got to build an
100%.
offensive line. You've got to build a defensive line. And what better way to go hire Coach Henderson and have him be your run game coordinator and your defensive line coach?
There was a segment on the Between the Horns podcast. It's the podcast that the Rams do. JB Long hosts it.
Yeah.
They were talking about, basically, they were a little salty. They were like, we're going to miss him. Like, he is the best part of this defense. And the best line from that, and I'm paraphrasing, is they were saying that outside of Aaron Donald, he develops guys so much. And they were like, the growth that the Rams defensive linemen have had under Henderson has been incredible. And so it's one thing, you take D'Anton Lynn, new defensive coordinator, away from your crosstown rival in UCLA, but then the Rams as well, you take someone away from them that they really they valued.
We're probably not very liked by some of these other fan bases. Well, we're never liked by the UCLA Bruin fans, but the Rams now are probably a little mad about that. But that's why I put the stats in, right? You can talk about the accolades and how long he's been coaching, what he's been doing, the success he's had. But that's why I wanted to put some of the stats in, right? You're playing at the NFL. That's the top of the top, the best players in the entire world. And you have the sixth best run defense in 2021, 50 sacks in 2021, which was third in the NFL. And then you have back-to-back years where you're right around 100 yards per game allowed on the ground. Those numbers aren't just because you have great players. Yes, you need great players, but you also have a great defensive coordinator who's also the run game coordinator, who's done a great job the last couple of years as having that title with the Rams.
And the thing too is, like, I feel like in past USC regimes, when it was like, okay, we're overhauling the staff, we're getting new guys, it was people who, I don't want to say the word like lackluster because I feel it's probably rude, but like it wasn't people that were sought after, it felt like. And it feels like USC went after people who the people they took them from are hurting. Does that make sense? Like,
absolutely.
People that, one, are somewhat unexpected, but also people who had value to their organization and are now poached. You know, I feel like that's something that USC hasn't done in a while. And so I thought that was interesting that they're kind of on their A game, being like, we're going to load this staff up.
Yeah. And if you look at the overall stuff, I'm still in shock. And I'm still surprised of the coaches that Lincoln Riley and Jen Cohen, got to give her credit as well.
Yeah,
they've been able to go get and build in such a short period of time, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to, it's a quick turnaround for recruiting for the portal and all of that. But for the season to end, and then you go get D'Anton Lynn, who was one of the best defensive coordinator probably in all of college football last year at UCLA, and you can get him out of there to come to the crosstown rival and now be the defensive coordinator at USC. Then you go get Matt Entz, who's a head coach at North Dakota State. He wasn't a coordinator. He wasn't an up-and-coming outside linebacker coach or any of those things. He was the head coach of one of the top FCS programs in the entire country. Multinational championships. Then you get him to come be the assistant head coach of the defense on the staff. Then you go get Doug Belt, a secondary coach who was heavily sought after, who's been just jumping up the ranks as well. And now we had Coach Henderson, who's a Super Bowl winning coach with the LA Rams, a team that just went to a divisional playoff round, who was probably next in line to continue to go up the ladder. And then you get him to come back to the college level and come be here at USC. So it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You have to give credit. And for the fans, and we see Twitter, for the fans that were saying, hey, Lincoln Riley's an offensive guy, you're never going to have a defense, he doesn't care about defense. He kind of, I don't want to say shut you up, but he really responded to that and showed that, hey, yes, I may be the best offensive mind in all of college football, but I understand that defense wins championships, right? And we just saw that with Michigan. An amazing defense, did a great job. Yes, Washington was off that night, but really Michigan won that game because of their defense. And the run game as well was very explosive.
Yeah.
But I love that Coach Riley is being this aggressive, and Jen Cohen, they're being this aggressive of building this staff, and I can't wait to see what they do with the players, but that's the other big thing. You've got to have the pieces in place, right?
Yep.
So now all our attention's gone from, okay, the staff is set. Now all our eyes are on recruiting and development for the next couple of years.
Yeah, and we've talked about that at length, where it's going to be a cycle. Like, you have to kind of layer that up.
Absolutely.
As far as the talent and the depth there. But to your earlier point, it always stood out to me, and I think I mentioned this on earlier episodes, that in his first press conference as USC's DC, Coach Lynn was like, the thing that impressed me was how serious AD Jen Cohen and Lincoln Riley were about getting the best defensive staff possible. And he said that at the start, and you can say that and then we'll see how it plays out, but it's held true ever since. It's crazy.
Every hire. It's unbelievable.
They're not playing around.
I'm still, and again, love the Henderson hire. I love that we're talking about it, but the Matt Entz hire just blows my mind. I still can't wrap my mind around that. I know we've talked about that in the last episode or 2 episodes ago, but it just blows my mind the type of sales pitch that Lincoln and Jen, and I know there's obviously some contract
financial
things that, some
benefits.
Financial things that play into play, but you have to get big time defensive coaches, and you have to be able to do that. But again, hats off to Coach Lincoln Riley and Jen Cohen for being so aggressive and building this staff. But again, like we just said, you've got to get the players in place. It doesn't matter the type of coaches you have. It does matter for culture and development and all that. But if they don't have the pieces of the puzzle to do what they want to do fully, it's not going to be successful. It's going to take some time. And you think of it like this. Take Nick Saban, right? Take Pete Carroll, two of the greatest coaches of all time, who we're going to talk about later in this episode. Take Nick Saban and put him on a Mountain West team as the head coach, and then put him in the SEC with those players. And nothing against the Mountain West, but I'm just saying that the talent level is different. Or take them to a non-Power 5 school, put them as the head coach. Are guys going to get better? Sure. But then you throw them in the Big Ten or the SEC, you don't have the players in place yet, right? You can be such a great coach. You could be the greatest coach of all time, but you have to have the players. And Nick Saban will tell you that. Lincoln Riley will tell you that. Bill Belichick, some of the greatest coaches will say, hey, coaches coach, players play. At the end of the day, I've got to get the most out of the guys on the field that are out there with the blood, sweat, and tears fighting their tails off to win football games. I got to get the best players to go out there and make me look good as a coach as well. But again, we're off to a great start, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do, not only for recruiting, but this year coming up in the Big Ten as well.
The thing that's so interesting in the transfer portal era is kind of, and Coach Riley has talked about this before, the roster construction and how the vibes fit with the players, if you will.
Yeah.
I wonder if that same process had to go for this defensive staff. You know, the first staff that Lincoln Riley came over with, 4 of them came with him from Oklahoma, so they knew each other. Only, I believe, Dante Williams and Sean Nua were new to the staff in that sense, chemistry-wise. So I'm curious, did you have to vet, how is this person in the coach's room, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's something I thought about, and I'm glad you brought this up, was when Lincoln and Jen were both figuring out who they're going to hire and building the staff, I'm sure he was Danton Lynn right there with them the entire time, kind of talking through, where's this guy going to fit? How is this guy going to work? Can I work well with him? Was it just Lincoln saying, hey, I'm going to go hire these people, which I don't think it was. I'm sure it was kind of by committee. Now, at the end of the day, Coach Riley's the head coach of the football program. He's going to make the final decision, and Jen Cohen, being the AD, is going to be there to assist him. But I'm sure, obviously, Coach Lynn was in there the entire time and talking through it, and they had probably some great meetings leading up to this. But it also, for me, yes, the titles are important, but how much weight do they really hold? Because Eric Henderson being co-defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Yeah, but does that mean, and in my opinion, I've played on teams where you've had an OC or co-OC, or you've had a head coach. Like we have it here at USC, right? Josh Henson is the offensive coordinator by title, but Lincoln Riley calls the plays, right? And same thing here. You're not going to have Henderson and Lynn on game day taking turns like, hey, you got first quarter, I got second quarter, right? Coach Lynn's going to call the plays. Now, I'm not in the meeting rooms. I don't know exactly. I think the co-defensive coordinator title is for a little bit of the contract issues, is for a little bit of, because I was with a coach a long time ago who said titles mean a lot, especially when you're working your way up the ladder. For Coach Henderson, obviously, hopefully we keep him for a long time, but having that co-DC title, I think in the future, and if things go well here, will help him jump up to a full-time DC or take away that co-title if it's here, if it's somewhere else, or whatever happens with Coach Lynn. But at the end of the day, you're not going to have 2 guys on game day calling plays. Now, I've been a part of a team that's done that before. I'm not going to say anything.
Interesting.
It's very difficult. I'm getting a little off track here. But, I'll say, when I was in Cleveland, we had times when Hugh Jackson would call some plays in the first, second quarter, and then Pep Hamilton would take over and call plays in the second half, which I would never advise for because it's 2 different people, 2 different play styles. Yeah, you may be on the same staff, but you call game plans differently and how you see it in your head.
Yeah.
I would never expect that to happen here, right? I think Coach Henderson's going to have a ton of input. I think he's going to be heavily involved in the run game aspect of things as well, leading up, Sunday through Friday when it comes to game planning for a team's run game. But at the end of the day, I think on Saturdays, Coach Lynn will have full-time play calling duties.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we mentioned before, but he is the co-defensive coordinator, run game coordinator, and defensive line coach. At the Rams, he was the run game coordinator and defensive line coach. So the co-defensive coordinator almost felt like a bump in order to probably financially help him come over to USC.
That's exactly what it is. Now, again, we're not a part of that, but
we don't know
That's
anything.
What my guess is. But at the end of the day, my money's on Coach Lynn calling the plays, because you don't hire Danton Lynn 2 months ago And then nothing's happened since then. It's not like, oh, okay, we need a co-defensive coordinator. My mind's changed, right? It's just, it's all titles, right?
Yeah.
Those all, and we'll learn more when we get to spring ball, who's calling the plays and how much Coach Henderson will be involved with defensive play calling and schemes and all that. But like I said, I would expect him to be heavily involved with the defensive run game plan going throughout the week.
Now, obviously, I know you're not in the room, but for Coach Nua, how much of an adjustment is that to just move to defensive ends coach?
I don't think it's too much. And it's crazy nowadays, too, the way that titles work in college football. Like last year, right, we had an inside wide receiver coach, an outside wide receiver coach.
Still do.
That's what I'm saying. But a lot of teams do that, not just us. I'm just speaking from USC because obviously we cover the program. Then we have a safeties coach. Some schools have a DB
outside
coach.
Linebacker,
outside to inside. So that's not too crazy. I think it's still a compliment to Coach Nua because it could have been like, all right, hey, Coach, thanks for everything. We're going to move on. We've got a defensive line coach coming from the NFL who's now the run game coordinator, but they think so highly of Coach Nua. They want to keep him on the staff and having him as a defensive end coach. Coach Nua and Coach Henderson are going to work hand in hand, though. It's not like they're going to be teaching one thing on the inside and teaching something completely different on the outside. They're going to work hand in hand. They're going to have the same philosophies. They're going to share stuff with each other. But at the end of the day, I love that they kept Coach Nua, and I don't think his role is going to change too much. Obviously, he's going to learn Coach Lynn's scheme. He's going to learn what Coach Henderson wants, and then you apply that to your coaching style, and you get the most out of your players that way.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, you touched on it already, and we kind of had our, oh my God, this new defensive staff moment, but any final thoughts about, we mentioned it's now complete. This staff it seems pretty powerful with knowledge and wisdom. So does that translate? We'll see, TBD. But so far, it seems like both AD Jen Cohen and head coach Lincoln Riley have put their best foot forward to try and, revamp this defensive side of USC's program. Yeah,
I mean, I've already touched on it when we've been talking about this defensive staff, but I love, again, what Coach Riley and Jen Cohen have done. You have to have a dominant defense, not only in college football, but the conference we're about to go play in. If you want to be successful in the Big Ten, you have to have defenses like Michigan, like Ohio State, like Penn State, teams that are defenses that are good year in and year out. And USC's obviously taking the right steps in doing that now. Again, we've got to get the players to be able to go and compete. But I love this to be successful, not only in that conference, but to be successful on a national level. It starts from the trenches out, right? And you said it before. You notice the most differences on teams, and you said it again, the Oregon game was the front seven, was the front four, was on both sides of the football. You've got to be able to stop the run. You've got to be able to get pressure on the quarterback. And on the opposite side, you've got to be able to run block and have a successful run game. You've got to be able to protect your quarterback. So this team has to start from the trenches out. Yes, you want to have all-star playmakers all over the field, which we have. You also want to have an all-star quarterback, right? Miller Moss did a great job of becoming that and being a leader on this team. But you have to start up front in the trenches, and that's hiring Eric Henderson, hiring Matt Entz, hiring Danton Lynn, who had dominant players in the front seven. Yeah, that's the best way to do that. So again, time will tell. Yeah, we're going to learn a lot more. I can't wait for spring ball. I'm excited. Again, we've said it before, but I cannot remember the importance and the excitement of a USC offseason in recent history as this one coming up. Yeah. And then, by the way, the 2024 schedule that we've talked about. Yes. We start with LSU, and then we go, I think we have Utah State, and then we go straight into the Big Ten play. So it's going to be crazy, but we are on the right track, and Lincoln Riley's done an amazing job of saying, hey, I do care about defense, and I'm going to go attack that, and I'm going to be as aggressive as possible. Yeah. Well, this next segment I have dubbed in my mind as Cody Reacts segment, just because I want to get your thoughts on three separate things. A couple of them you've already touched on, but before we jump into it, just want to give a thanks to Audi. Performance is more exhilarating on a real road. Introducing the Audi Q5. Visit your SoCal Audi dealers, proud sponsors of the USC Trojans. And at Ralph's, everyone wins when it comes to saving big, because when you order online through the Ralph's app, you get the same great prices, deals, and rewards on pickup or delivery that you do in store. So no matter how you shop, you always save big at Ralph's. Ralph's, fresh for everyone, fight on. Now, you had a great transition segue into this segment, because I felt like the way that USC reacted in the bowl game was such a great boost into the offseason, and it's such an important offseason. And I honestly didn't know how USC was going to come out and play after 6 weeks off. And I know we've touched on this. I talked about it with the recap episode with Deion Bailey, but I was just, it was such a great omen, especially given what the Tulane loss kind of did for USC this past offseason. But it just felt like USC was putting its best foot forward for the next 9 months. So I know one of our keys to the game was it's Miller time, and it clearly was Miller time. But I'm curious, quarterback Cody, what you thought of Miller's performance. Yeah, it was phenomenal, right? And that's what we said was Louisville had a top I think 12 run defense in the entire country.
Yeah.
And again, it's a month ago, so I'm sorry if I'm off. But
Yeah.
and we said this game's going to come down to Miller Moss and these USC wide receivers to be able to go out there and win that. And obviously Lincoln Riley knew that. They were running the football. Austin Jones, 11 carries, 60 yards. So we ran it here and there, but it was the Miller show. We wanted to throw the football over the field, and we did just that. His numbers were phenomenal, 23 of 33, which is 70%, 372 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 1 interception. I've got to give some credit to the receivers as well, right? Your quarterback's only as good as your playmakers on the outside. Wide receiver Taj Washington had 7 receptions, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think that put him over 1,000
It did.
for the year
On
as
the
well.
season,
And I saw, got to give him credit too and give him his flowers, 14th all time. He broke into the top 15
really?
for USC receiving yards.
That's awesome.
So that's awesome for him, and I can't wait to see what he does at the next level. But this is what I was most excited about, these next 3 guys. Wide receiver Mekhi Lemon,
Yep.
true freshman, 2 receptions, 75 yards. Wide receiver Jacoby Lane, true freshman,
Yep.
3 receptions, 60 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then wide receiver Deuce Robinson, true freshman, huge play there in the second half, 1 reception, 44 yards for a touchdown. The USC, and this is counting Zachariah Branch, who was doing a lot more all over the field, obviously in special teams as well. I think he had 2 catches for 9 yards. But the USC freshman wide receivers, true freshmen, mind you, combined for 8 catches, 188 yards, and 3 touchdowns in that game alone. That was phenomenal to see. And all those guys are coming back, right?
Yep.
All those guys are staying here, which was so exciting to see. And I love that Mekhi Lemon got an opportunity as well. I know they've tried him out at DB. He's done some other things, floated around, a guy that's, I'll do whatever it takes to get on the field. I'm glad that he had those 2 big plays, huge spark plays in that game. But going back to Miller, again, was awesome. And my favorite part of the night, yes, the 6 touchdowns are great. Yes, the poise and the leadership and the composure that he had on the field, he never seemed to get rattled, was awesome to see. But my favorite part of the night, and I was watching the game again with Leinart up in the booth or up in the suite, my favorite part of the night was that interception. And why for me was because everything outside of the first drive was perfect, right? The flow, and the first drive was obviously a little frustrating, and it felt like, are we going to get a rhythm?
Yeah.
And then after that, we just caught fire and we're rolling, and everything was going great. And then Miller throws that pick. And I was excited for that because you love to see what you have in a quarterback when adversity strikes, when you throw an interception, when things aren't going perfect. It's easy to get in a rhythm when your head coach, Lincoln Riley's dialing up the play calls, you as a quarterback's in rhythm and you're on the same page and hitting it and you can't miss and your receivers are making the play and you're getting the defensive looks that you want, but then we're about to score and almost put the game away.
Yeah.
Throws a pick. It's 28-14 at the time. They take it back and then they go down and score, make it 28-21. So I'm sitting there thinking, all right, now we're really going to learn what Miller Moss has, right? What he's capable of, how he's going to react to adversity. And then he comes back 11 plays, 53 yards, and finishes with a beautiful back of the end zone touchdown pass to Jacoby Lane in the back corner. Phenomenal. That was the most important part of the night for me. Again, the 6 touchdowns are awesome. The deep ball, making all the throws was great to see, giving his guys chances. And some of those were understanding situations, right? The first touchdown, again, to Jacoby Lane that he threw to him was throwing it up, knowing that it was one-on-one coverage. To see him read and react and recognize those opportunities was awesome to see. But again, for me, my favorite part of the night and talking to Leinart as well, when we were watching him was after that pick, how's he going to react? And again, came out, led an 11-play touchdown drive, was awesome to see. And it's his job to lose. He made his statement. He put 3 or 4 exclamation points at the end of that game. And it was awesome. Just Twitter and Instagram getting the credit he deserves.
Yeah.
And for a guy who's done it the right way, who's stayed around, who could have transferred, who probably could have played elsewhere, who could have gone to other places and put his name in the portal and got other offers. For him to stick around, get his opportunity, and make the most of it was great to see.
Now, when you were previewing the Holiday Bowl, did you expect to be on your single game touchdown record breaking watch?
I'll tell you what, if it would have been such a cool story if he did it. And it's going to get broken. We all know that. It's going to happen,
Sure.
especially when Lincoln Riley's your head coach. I thought Caleb was going to do it.
Yeah.
And he probably could have some of those games that he got pulled out early. But again, it would have been so cool for that to happen, or just tied it, even if you would have got one more. But yeah, it would have been awesome to see. And I didn't know what to expect though. And in all honesty, even though I was talking to you on the field before the game and it was cool. We had a little reunion, a bunch of SC former players and all of us talking. And you guys were doing the pregame show as well. But no one really knew what to expect.
Yeah.
Because of the players that were out, because of the younger guys playing, Miller's first ever start.
Yeah.
No one really knew what to expect. And I thought, hey, it's going to go one of 2 ways. Now, is this set in stone? Is Miller the best quarterback of all time and go ahead, give him the Heisman for next year and all that, and we're going to win every game? No. And he knows that. But that's a great start to his career. It's great confidence and momentum to build off of. Now, for me, the biggest thing for Miller going forward is going to be consistency, right? And I know there's not going to be, he can't do that because there's no games until next year. But consistency, what I mean by that is going into spring ball. There's going to be, and we'll talk about it later, some guys coming in, some other competition here and there, but he's got to go in and prove that in spring ball as QB1 now. He's never been QB1 in practice outside of leading up to the bowl game and playing in that game. Now he's got to do it day in and day out. It takes a lot of commitment, of time, of energy, and I know he's the perfect guy for the job, but it takes all those things to be consistent in practice, in spring ball, to prepare for games, going into fall camp, leading those player-ran practices now, that he's going to be the top guy, getting everybody out there and being the leader. So for him, that consistency is going to be huge this offseason because he's going to have to fight every day and continue to compete to fight guys off, because there's a couple waves of transfer guys come in. There's a couple waves still ahead, and there's some other things that can still happen from here in opening day. But what a great start to his career, and I can't wait to see him build off of it and build off of that momentum this offseason.
To your point, though, what's interesting is that if the quantity of tape that Miller has is by far so much practice tape, and you say that he has to prove it in practice now until opening day, what do you have to do different, or what are you showing? If you're Coach Riley, what are you looking for in Miller to signify that he is QB1? In September.
And to your point, yes, there is a lot of practice tape that he's done, and we've seen him in spring games. He's played well, but now you're the guy, right? So Caleb Williams the last 2 years was the guy, and Miller was the backup. And even the year before that, when Jackson Dart was here, he was ahead of Miller. Miller played a little bit when Jackson got hurt in a game, but outside of that, there's no game film, and there's probably very minimal practices of him with the first unit, right? So when you're the starter, and it was kind of like me with Matt Barkley here, right? I was the backup. I was behind him. We would get reps with the twos. We could do things in practice, but I hardly ever went in practice with Robert Woods or went against TJ McDonald, unless it was scout team, right? But outside of that, ones versus ones, you've never been the starter day in and day out. So you've never gone with that unit. Now, when Miller takes over as QB1, as a starter, presumably, and it's his job to lose, right? Going into the offseason, he absolutely should be the starter going into spring ball, which he will be. I have no doubt about that. But you've got to go out there, and the offense has to look dominant day in and day out as your QB. When you have best on best, when you have iron sharpens iron, you have to go out there and produce. You can't have continuous off days, because as a coach, if you see that and you're not getting the production that you want, then you start having some questions. Okay, this guy's full-time leader now. He's full-time quarterback. You've got to continue to see him get better and make the guys around him better. I'm not saying he's not going to do that. I'm just saying for him, that's his next step in this journey as a starting quarterback is go have a great spring. Go have a great spring game. Go have a great summer workouts, offseason, all of that leading into fall camp, because it's USC. You're going to compete every single day. There's a guy behind you who's trying to take your job, and especially with today's era, look at Ohio State. The amount of quarterbacks, how quickly that changed, right? You have one guy there, and then all of a sudden you get two transfer guys, another freshman, all these other guys coming in there, and now you have five guys competing for one spot. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen here at USC, and I love what Lincoln said in the press conference post-game. He said, hey, Miller scared everybody off pretty much. Now, I know we've got some guys, like I said, coming in we'll talk about in some later episodes, but at the end of the day, you've got to produce day in and day out if you want to be the best in the country. USC, we are one of the top schools in the entire country. Every single day is competition. You've got to be the best. And Miller knows that. I'm not saying anything that he doesn't know, but that's the next step for him in this journey, is having a great spring.
We've talked a lot about how Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley were kind of mind melding when it came to USC's offense. Did you see Riley adjust certain things of how USC's offense flowed for Miller at all?
Not too much. I didn't see as many RPOs. That's one thing that stood out to me, of Miller pulling it, taking off, and running. It was a lot more of pocket passing, of sitting in the pocket, of making reads, of great checks to the line. There was one play, too, I think, either in the second quarter or second half. It was an all-out cover zero on 3rd and 11, and Miller did an amazing job of orchestrating the offensive line, sitting in there, taking a hit and throwing a beautiful throw to Taj Washington, who picked up the first down. Those are huge plays and huge momentum drives that Lincoln knows I can call these plays, and it may not be the perfect scenario, and we're getting cover zero now, but Miller's going to make me right. And Caleb did the same thing as well with Lincoln. Now, obviously, Miller wasn't out there Houdini, if you will, and running around and having 10-second dropbacks running around like Caleb can do, which makes him, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the country for not only his arm strength, but his ability to improvise and make plays happen from nothing. But Miller did such a great job of knowing his role, of playing within the system. And as a backup quarterback, honestly, sometimes you're more in tune with the head coach because you're sharing ideas while Caleb's on the field.
Interesting.
Miller's right there in Lincoln's pocket. Talk, hey, what'd you see? What did you guys see? He has a ton of input. He has a different perspective on it.
Sure.
Because he's not only a player, but he's also a glorified coach on game day.
With the headset.
Whereas the headset, he can see things from a different level. But yeah, I think they were on the same page. It was great to see. Offense changed a little bit. But I'll tell you what, they threw the ball for Miller's first start. They threw the ball a lot more than I thought they were, and I knew they were going to have to throw it to win. But they came out firing, and they didn't stop throughout the entire game, which was great to see.
Now, I know we can't glean too much from the defensive performance, but anything from I thought the players who were there, and I've talked about this before, it felt like they had this almost chip on their shoulder of like, quote unquote, we want to be here. That's what they said post game. And so just curious. I mean, I thought Prophet Brown and Jalen Smith played really well, but curious your thoughts.
Yeah, that was the first thing that I noticed was, again, a lot of guys out, and especially in the secondary, a lot of guys out. A very young secondary. They did a phenomenal job of stopping the pass that night. Now, we know Louisville was a balanced team, but they like to lean more on the run. But just looking at the numbers, points only gave up 28 points. Then total yards only gave up 361, which was a lot better than we had done throughout the entire year. Passing yards only allowed 141. Rushing yards, 220. Again, that's not what you want to see, and I put that in my notes. That will get better with this staff, though, and I believe that. And if you're a Trojan fan, I promise you that will happen. That's why they go out and get Henderson, Coach Lynn, Coach Ince, all these coaches to build a great front seven to stop the run, which is going to be heavy in the Big Ten. And then on third down, 6 of 12, 50% conversion rate. For Louisville, that needs to be a little bit better, too. You like to see that around 35%, I would say, is a win. But overall, we did a great job. Forced 2 fumbles. Jalen Smith, I'm glad you brought him up, was all over the field, led the team with 12 tackles, played free. Guys played, I don't want to say careless, but they played like with their hair on fire, if you will. It felt like guys were flying around, having fun. The sideline was going crazy, which was great to see. But again, my other point on the defensive side of the ball, young secondary played really well in the back end, right? They did a great job. That was a quarterback in Plummer who hurt us very badly the year before at Cal, threw for almost 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. We did a great job of stopping that. And they had some great players on the outside there for Louisville. We just did a great job in coverage. And another guy, too, that stood out to me again that I just can't speak highly enough, and I can't wait to see him work with Coach Henderson, is Bear Alexander. He had a great game, was disruptive the entire night. But, you have to give credit to the defense. As great as Miller played and the offense played, our defense did a great job of getting big-time stops when we needed them so the offense can continue their momentum.
In a game where, to be honest, they could have just been like, we're in transition, it is what it is, But
easy to make excuses, especially with a lot of guys out. And I talked to Gavin before the game, and that was one of the concerns, was got a lot of guys out. Are the younger players going to step up? It's make or break time. Their defensive coordinator's watching. Let's get after it. And it got me pumped up, and I was excited. And Gavin's the hype man and all that. And they come out and perform, and you see that type of performance. That was great to see because, again, when you play in a bowl, you're 7-5. The season's over. You're looking into next year. A lot of guys are transferring. A lot of guys are leaving to the draft. College football offseason, if you will, is starting up, and it's that crazy time of the year. It's easy to overlook a bowl game that's not a college football playoff, that's not a New Year's Six, and get ready for next year. But these guys came out to play, and Lincoln Riley did a phenomenal job of having his team ready to go and having them really care about this game and go out there and put in a great performance and building great momentum going into the offseason.
For sure. I have more topics I want to get your thoughts on, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've mentioned it already in this podcast, but for one final ride, I was backing the Pack in the national championship game.
Okay.
Why couldn't Penix and Odunze connect? Like, as a quarterback, I'm just curious what you were thinking while that was happening.
Yeah, it was. So first and foremost, you have to give credit to Michigan's defense. They did a great job of getting pressure on Penix. They have a great front seven. They have a great secondary. They do a great job all over the field. Top 10, top 5 defense in the entire country, right? They did a phenomenal job. But I don't want to say the moment was too big because I don't think it was. Like, we saw Penix perform in the Pac-12 championship. Then we saw him a week prior against Texas. Couldn't miss. On a national stage in the playoffs. Couldn't miss. Whatever it was, though, that night, just the throw, the one where he had Odunze down the sideline, it was like a cover 2, and the Michigan's busted in the back end and had a mistake at safety, and Odunze went in and Penix threw it out, right? And they just missed by an inch. Then they have another play where it's like a crosser and Penix throws it a little bit higher and the guy takes a flat angle. It's so frustrating. And then I actually had a tweet go viral and people kind of went after me.
Wow, I didn't know this.
I'll say this, and Michigan fans were coming after me, but it was true. There were some missed calls there and game change. And I'm never the guy to blame refs, and I'll never will. And I'm not saying I'm blaming the refs.
Right, I did see your tweet.
But that sluggo, that beautiful throw, to, I think, Odunze down the sideline when Penix and Washington's only down 7 still, and they call it back for a holding call, which was not a holding call, which if you're going to call that, fine. And I get, and some of the argument was there's a holding call on every play if you really wanted to. Sure. I mean, by definition, you could probably, if you really wanted to be a ticky-tack and call those. But the problem is there were multiple times where Michigan was, and I'm not, and I, obviously Michigan fans are going to be like, hey, whatever, cry about it. And a lot of people are like, cry about it, your team lost. I'm like, dude, I'm a USC Trojan. I could care less about either one of these teams. I just love good football and like watching competitive games. But there were a couple calls where Michigan was holding. I know refs aren't going to see everything, but for me, it's tough when you're playing a team like Michigan, and they weren't calling them for Michigan. A couple of those were touchdown runs as well, but just keep it consistent, right? And Tim Tebow tweeted something the same thing, right? Don't miss a couple calls from Michigan and let them get away with it, and then call that non-holding ticky-tack call in Washington on a huge momentum moment. So for me, that was kind of an issue as well. It was tough to get in a rhythm for this offense for Washington because of some of those calls getting called back.
Sure.
Maybe missed a couple calls here and there. I'm not going to get too deep into that. But, yeah, overall it was just – and again, that game was a couple weeks ago, so I have to go back and watch the film. But it was a quarterback that we hadn't seen. And even people say, oh, he didn't score against Arizona State. Yeah, but he still threw for 355 yards and did a good job of having explosive plays. Arizona as well. They didn't have a huge performance on offense, but he still threw for over 300 yards. Like, we hadn't seen that performance from Penix in the last 13 or 14 games. So – I don't want to say the lights were too bright. I don't want to say that he just, the moment was too big, because I don't think it was. I just think he had an off night. It's one of those nights where even pitchers in baseball or guys in basketball where they can't hit a shot, or Steph Curry just seems off that night. He can't hit a 3, or Clayton Kershaw. Yeah. Guys are teeing off on him on the other side. And it's just one of those nights where he just couldn't get in a rhythm, and he picked the worst night to have it.
So frustrating.
Yeah, it was frustrating to watch. I'm with you. I still support the Pack as well, and wanted to see Washington keep it competitive, but take nothing away from Michigan. They did a great job, and that was a big game for them.
One final topic I wanted to get your thoughts on, particularly you, Cody, because you have experience or history with all 3 of these legendary men, I will say. Pete Carroll, Nick Saban, and Bill Belichick. It was an avalanche of coaching news. Saban and Carroll on the same day. Yeah. Insane. I just wanted your thoughts on when all that transpired, what was going through your mind.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be recruited by Pete Carroll and Nick Saban. Got to go to a camp when they used to, I don't know if they still do the Rising Stars camp.
They do.
Okay, cool. So I went out there and was coached by Coach Carroll as well, which was awesome, and then played for Bill Belichick my last year in the NFL. But Pete Carroll, phenomenal, and obviously I know he said he wants to keep coaching, but just what he's done, and got to give him his flowers. It's just unbelievable, both at NFL and college level. 161 wins in the NFL, 11 wins in the postseason. Combining those together makes it 16th all-time in NFL history. Won Super Bowl 48, and then his college stats here at USC. And as a college head coach, I didn't know this. I thought, and I probably should have, but I thought he coached elsewhere. But USC was the only head coaching job that he had in college from 2001 to 2009. Yeah. So, I mean, other places were obviously he coached the Patriots and the Jets in the NFL and then Seattle. Yeah. But this was his only college job, was USC, and he had 97 wins during his time here. 2-time AP National champion, 4-time Rose Bowl champion, Orange Bowl champion, 7-time Pac-10 champion.
TBT.
So before it was the Pac-12, and then 2003 Coach of the Year. Another cool stat about that was he's only one of 3 coaches who have won both a college national championship and a Super Bowl. I know you know the other 2 because I send you my notes. Yeah. But I'm going to say it now, but if anybody else does know that or wants to guess, I'll give you a couple seconds. Yeah, a little Jeopardy music. But the other 2 are Barry Schweitzer, who was the head coach of Oklahoma, won a national championship there, and also won a Super Bowl with Dallas. And then Jimmy Johnson, who won a national championship with the University of Miami and a Super Bowl with the Dallas Cowboys as well. Just unbelievable. And he's 72 and wants to keep coaching, like I just mentioned. It's crazy. I mean, you just have to have a certain amount of love for football, which we know Coach Carroll does. And I love watching those old tapes of him coaching USC, those mic'd up. I've watched videos of Mark Sanchez mic'd up, of Sark mic'd up when he was the OC, coaching for Carroll, and just him bouncing around, running around.
So much energy.
Going to the camp, I remember as a high school sophomore and being recruited by them, just the love that he has for the game and wanting to be a part of it, and the way that he develops his players is unbelievable. So if he is going to continue to coach, and if he does get another job, I can't wait to see what he does. But if not, his legacy is already set in stone in both college and the NFL level. So it's going to be awesome to continue to follow his journey if he keeps coaching.
For sure. Or extra co-host. We can maybe recruit him.
If we, get him on the show. I bet we could. I mean, we probably could.
Okay. New goal.
Yeah.
I
know. Let me, before everyone.
Dream big.
You got to think, though. That's the thing for me is playing quarterback here, right? Obviously, we're a USC podcast. Everybody and we got Matt to commit, Leinart.
We did.
We got Leinart fully committed at the Holiday Bowl.
You were like stressing him out. You were like, Matt, you're coming on the show, right? And he was like, I've told you this many times.
Oh, I've known Matt. Well, I had him say it in front of you, so I've known Matt forever. So I don't.
No,
we talk
I
all the
know.
time.
You guys have such a brother dynamic.
Well, it's funny because we're 10 years apart birthday-wise.
Exactly.
I'm May 11th, 93. He's May 11th, 83. So we always, I've gotten really close with Matt over the years. So he's awesome. But yeah, everybody that we talk to, like, they bleed Cardinal and gold, right? And I said, Pete Carroll only now the logistics of him actually coming back down here for an interview, don't know if that would ever happen. But either way, to be able to claim him as a USC Trojan from his coaching days in college is unbelievable. Yeah. I did have a little fun fact too. I added this in.
Okay.
Did you look yet? I told you not to look. So he's been coaching, just to put in perspective, and he wants to keep coaching. He's been coaching since 1973.
Crazy.
Do you know where he started out? He was a GA, his first ever coaching job. And I will say, where he started out, they no longer have a football program anymore.
Well,
yes.
That means I'm not going to get this right. So I will say, though, I did see on Twitter.
Someone may know this, too, if you want to guess.
I saw on Twitter there was an article that Carroll replaced Saban at one point for a position coaching job at some point.
Okay, I'd have to.
Okay.
I don't want to.
This
I don't
is not
want
the
to.
same thing.
Okay.
Okay, you go.
No, this is not the same thing. This is when he first started. This is a GA job in 1973. And he returned
Mountain
here
West,
10 years later.
know.
He returned to the same school as the defensive coordinator.
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay, so it was the school was the Pacific Tigers is what they're called. It's the University of Pacific. They're Stockton, California campus. They have multiple campuses, but it was a Stockton, California campus. They were the Big West Conference. That was a conference they were in at the time.
I said something with West in it.
Yeah, there you go. But then in 1995, the football program was terminated, and that was their last season. But 1983, he came back as a defensive coordinator.
Wow.
It was fun. I love, you could tell I'm a football. I could talk football all day long.
Sure, yes.
To anybody, anytime, anywhere. So I love talking about Pete Carroll. And then obviously I got some stats on Saban coming up. And then Belichick obviously played for him as well. So I got a couple stories there. But yeah, it's unbelievable what he's done for the game of football, where he's been. And then obviously went to the NFL from 84 to 99, then went to SC in 2001. And then his last 13 years or 14 years have been with the Seahawks. But just, again, if he keeps coaching, he goes elsewhere, I'm always going to be a Pete Carroll fan. I'll root for him wherever he goes. If not, and if it does come to the decision where he's done, which obviously he doesn't want to be, but he's 72 years old, still rolling. But
the man has energy.
Either way, like I said, I love that we can claim him as a Trojan. I'm sure there's a lot of Trojan fans out there that listen to this show that either were there for the Pete Carroll days or became Trojan fans because of those Pete Carroll days.
I mean, in some ways, we could argue that we're sitting here because of what he did.
Yeah.
The legacy and what he built in this this past era of USC football.
There you go. And there's some greats, obviously, with McKay and Howard Jones, some of these all-time late great coaches that did so much for USC football. Yeah. But for my era, for our era, it was Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll that was my first ever USC game, was watching Pete Carroll coach them against Fresno State in the Coliseum, and fell in love with it, and it was awesome. And then you watch the what was the 30 for 30? The
Trojan War or something.
Trojan War, something. Yeah. You watch it and really learn more about when Pete Carroll was here. It was just unbelievable. But again, I know we're talking a lot about this, but he's someone that I would love to talk about. So it was unfortunate to see that news for him parting ways with Seattle. But again, it's unbelievable coach, and his legacy that he has on the game of football will never, in my opinion, be matched.
Now, something I learned by doing this podcast, you were offered by Saban?
I was recruited.
I'm sorry to sound surprised. It's not that. It's just the fact that you had a whole visit and whatnot.
Yeah, well, Alabama was one of my final 5, I think.
Okay.
When I was getting recruited. But yeah, I went. So quick story behind that was I obviously got recruited by Nick Saban. I want to say, who was their quarterback coach, offensive coordinator? I had a great relationship with. Now I'm butchering. He's a big time coach. McElwain, I think it was at the time.
Okay.
I think he ended up going to Florida, right?
You're asking me like I would know.
Yeah, no,
this.
I think it was. If all my football fans out there, you'll probably remember this. Jim McElwain, I think, was the offensive coordinator at the time.
What year is this?
This was 2010.
Okay.
2009.
Why did I think this was 2006?
Look it up. Check for me real quick, please, while I tell this story.
Yes.
Just to make sure I'm not butchering it. But I'm pretty sure it was McElwain was offensive coordinator. But anyways, they convinced me to take a visit out there. And I wanted, and it was, like when you're getting recruited at the high school level, these schools want you, especially when you're on different sides of the country, to take a visit.
Jim.
Yeah, Jim McElwain, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So he was the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach at the time. And yeah, he was recruiting me, and I remember going out there, but they were saying, hey, come take a visit, and we want to talk to you in person. Well, these schools want you to take a visit because they're not just going to throw offers out if you're not serious about coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's California to Tuscaloosa is a very long ways away. So they wanted to show, hey, I'm serious. So I went out there. I had a great visit. It was unbelievable. Got to watch practice in person. We stayed there the entire day. My dad's mom lived out there at the time, rest in peace. And she was living in just north of Jacksonville, Alabama. So we got to go out there, stay with her, which was awesome. Then me and my dad drove to practice in Tuscaloosa, which is about 2 hours away, I think, and spent the whole day there, had a great visit. And I remember walking into Saban's office and sitting down, and he had a little remote, and he clicked a button and the windows opened or closed or whatever. Then he clicked a button and then a big wooden sliding door or big wood sliding door shuts. And then he clicks another button for the lights to go. It was just
You're
their
impressed by the
facilities.
buttons.
Yeah. I'm like, well, I need to get one of those in my room. But the facilities were unbelievable. But again, it was just to be in his presence and talk to him, one of the all-time great coaches, if not the greatest college coach of all time. Obviously, Pete Carroll's right there with him. But what was awesome to get to experience that. And I almost committed to Alabama. That was one of the schools that I really wanted to go to, and it was on my final 5. But obviously, I want to stay closer to home. But yeah, it was a cool experience to get to see him coach in person at a practice and then get to talk to him afterwards in his office.
Oh, I'm sure. And I mean, his legacy speaks for itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's just when you look at the numbers, 292 all-time wins, which is unbelievable. And put that in perspective, there's only 12 games a year. And then you playoffs, maybe get to 14, but 292 wins at the college level. Obviously, Toledo, Michigan State, LSU, and then most recently Alabama. 7-time national champion, which is the most all-time at the college level. And then 11-time SEC champion, which is arguably one of the toughest conferences in all of college football. So one of the greats, and his presence in college football is going to be missed greatly. But he's same age as Pete Carroll. But he's a little opposite there. He said, I'm done, I'm out. And you got to think, too, and obviously I don't know the full story. He said that his age and all of that played a big factor in his press conference. But does the NIL, the way that college football has changed, I don't know if he'll admit that, but the way that the landscape of college football is changing, did that play a factor into that and just how difficult it is to not only recruit guys, but to keep them there as well and the money and paying players and all that? You'd have to think played a little bit of a factor. But either way, that's all speculation. I got to give him his flowers and one of the greatest coaches of all time.
And finally, Bill Belichick is someone that you were actually coached by. You've told some stories before on the show, but now that this news came out, I was curious your thoughts and any other stories maybe.
Yeah, he was awesome. And it was Belichick's one of those people you see in the interviews, right? Not a ton of words, very straight to the point. That's exactly how he is as a coach. I loved playing for him. I really did. That's kind of how I was too. Kind of show up, get your work done, be there early, lock in, and then when you're done, you can go home and do all your things. And Coach Belichick was very business oriented when we were in the business, and you have to be one of the greatest of all time.
Sure, yes.
And to win the Super Bowls that they did and have the success that they had between him and Tom. And I was fortunate enough to be there with Belichick, Tom, and Josh McDaniels all at the same time. So I got to kind of be around those guys who had so much success at the highest level of the game of football, which was phenomenal. And Tom was just one of the most down-to-earth teammates I've ever been around, which was great. And McDaniels was the same way. We had a great quarterback room. And on Saturdays, the day before games, Bill would come in, and it would just be me, Stidham, and Tom, and we would watch film with Bill. And Tom and Bill were they were close. Obviously, they'd known each other for a long time. But me and Jared would get a little more, sit up a little more straight, get a little nervous. But he was awesome. I honestly did love playing for Belichick. And quick story, too, kind of funny one. It was kind of a roller coaster ride when you're playing for Belichick because he's, like I said, very upfront. He'll tell you how it is and then move on, and you've just got to kind of adapt and adjust, right? So I remember we're at practice. It was one of my first weeks there, and Tom's obviously the starter, so me and Stidham would do the scout team stuff. And I remember we were doing something for a little walkthrough for the defensive line or the front seven, and he would show you a card, and he would run this period. And he would show you a card and say, hey, do this, and then – this is what we're going to do. Blah, blah. So you get a card, boom, do the play. Well, one of them, he wanted to kind of trick the defense. So he goes, here's a card. We're going to run this once, and then we're going to come back, same card, but flip it, and then the next card. And kind of explained it quick.
Okay.
And me, I'm like, wait, and then he kind of walked away. And I didn't want to be like, Coach, I didn't get it, and be that guy, right?
Yeah,
but
especially
I also,
it's your first couple of weeks.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, no, I got it. He needs to see that he kind of did it quick.
Yeah.
Trying to learn it on the fly. I've only been there a couple days, and we do it, and So we do it the first time, do it right. Then we go back the second time. He's like, again. Well, he wanted to flip that one, but I thought he meant again, like he was just trying to trick the defense. So me and the running back, we all do the same thing again. And he looks at me and he goes, "You moron, like, what are you doing?" And I'm like, oh no, I'm done. He's only known me for a week or two. I'm out. Like, they're cutting me tomorrow. I'm freaking out. Go back in the locker room. And this is like the first defensive period. So we still like an hour and a half of practice left. Go out, and I threw the ball well, played well that day. And we get done and go back into the locker room. And I remember talking to Mick Lombardi, who was the QB coach or was there at the time, and Josh and Tom and all them in the meeting room. And I'm like, guys, I'm done. Like, I'm getting cut. Telling him this story, telling Mick, like, dude, I'm done. And Jarrett Stidham's there too. And I'm like, dude. And like, what happened? I was like, I messed up the card. And it was like off script, but he wanted me to do it a certain way. And I did it the wrong way. And then he looked at me and called me a moron.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, that's it? And I was like, wait, what? Like, that's all he called you? And I'm like, yeah. And Jared's like, dude, he's called me way worse. And Tom and all them were sitting there laughing, like, dude, you're fine, I promise. And Mick's like, Cody, that's nothing compared. But it's the tough love type of coach. And then a week later, we do one-on-ones with the running backs, and he showed like 3 of my clips. It was cool because Tom threw a touchdown to I forgot who it was. It might have been James White at the time. But he threw a touchdown on a wheel route. And when we did one-on-ones, I went with the running backs that day, and we practiced that play about 4 times, and we hit it 4 out of 4. And Bill showed practice translating to games and showed me throwing a touchdown in practice, and then showed Tom the next play showing it in the game.
Good job.
And he said, this is why practice is important, blah, blah. Great job, Cody, and this and that. So
Yay.
It was cool, but it's like an up and down emotions, and he's like one of those coaches you want to love you, especially when you're like a new player. Like, I got to get on his good side. But yeah, it was awesome. And I got another ton of great stories. They played in Philly, and I was there in the offseason. So he was asking me a little bit, hey, what's some of the stuff you learned in Philly? Because, it's a copycat league. Everybody plays different places. And I was just saying, hey, this is stuff I learned and helping out. And this is Bill Belichick asking me questions throughout the week. Hey, walk us through this. Help us with the defense. And then after the game, I'll never forget, I walked in and Bill gave me like a big old bear hug because we won that game. And the previous year, they'd beaten them in the Super Bowl. Okay. So we come back, win that game. And he was talking to me on the sideline, asking, just what I thought and what I learned from them and playing against him before. And just a cool moment. And then we walk in the locker room and he shakes everybody's hand and high fives and gave me like a bear hug. Wow. And then I told Tom and Mick and all that as well, and Jarrett. And Tom's like, dude, I only get a hug if we win a Super Bowl, or like made a joke about it. But it was pretty funny. But yeah,
That's awesome.
And he's not done though. He's a coach just interviewing like Atlanta.
Carroll.
Who still wants to keep coaching, but I got a ton of other stories too. I don't want to get this is the USC podcast.
we can save it for another day.
I really do. I got a ton of NFL stories. But yeah, no, he's a great coach, and I think again his legacy, what he and Tom did in New England was unbelievable, and I do believe he's going to get hired elsewhere, and I think he's going to continue coaching, and I think he has a lot more in him.
No, this is exactly why I wanted your thoughts, because you just have such interesting
these stories. I love it's the trip down memory lane, but yeah, and I'm ad-libbing a little bit, like we're obviously a family-friendly podcast, but some of these stories, they're pretty funny.
No, Cody, please give us
let's get the unfiltered,
unrated Bill Belichick.
We'll do a little side podcast that's the Victory Pod After Dark, like they did the Pac-12.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty, Cody, we now got to get into questions, like we mentioned at the top. Before we do, just want to give a thanks to Audi. What if there was a portal into the future? Enter the fully electric Audi Q4 e-tron with an advanced touchscreen infotainment system. Audi, the future awaits. And you can take your health to the next level with Symbiotica. Their premium, easy-to-take supplements fuel your body with key vitamins and minerals to help you reach peak performance on and off the field. Elevate your health today by going to Symbiotica.com and use code FIGHTON for 15% off site-wide.
Fight on.
Alrighty, let's jump into some questions. First one is from Ron, who says, what is the team doing in their offseason? How do the quarterbacks stay prepared at this time?
So right now they're doing... obviously, they can work out right with Coach Wiley.
Yes,
I'm pretty sure that's
lifts.
started back up. Yeah, so they can do weight room training, all of that. They can't do any on-the-field activities right now with the coaches besides, like, you can grab the players yourself. Have the player ran practices started?
Yes.
So those started, okay. Is the media out there?
No.
Okay, good. Got to keep the media away.
The Cody Kessler legacy.
The Cody Kessler era. But, Yeah, so right now, obviously, weight training with the strength staff, and then outside of that, it's just players only on the field. Now, you do these player-ran practices, but also I would expect Miller to grab Deuce, to grab Jacoby, Zachariah, some of these younger guys, and take them out and get extra reps in like I would do with Nelson and Juju, and just kind of continue to build that connection throughout the offseason so that the player-ran practices do go smoothly. And if you need extra work, stay out there longer, do whatever you need to do. But, yeah, that's really all they can do right now until spring ball starts, and then that's the only time they can have coaches on the field with them. Now, I know the coaches, this might be different from when I was here. The coaches can come out for some of the weight, the weight training or on the field. You can do like conditioning. Yeah. So I remember coaches would come out there periodically and watch and coach us a little bit here and there. And then Lincoln, you see him, some of those videos of him talking to the team after workouts. But yeah, mostly just all strength staff and then player ran practices until spring ball starts up.
Jonathan had an interesting question. He said, how is our offense, our current offense, different from what Big Ten offenses normally are?
Yeah, it's a big difference. I mean, we're titled the air raid offense, right? Now, we ran the football a lot last year. Marshawn Lloyd had a phenomenal year. Austin Jones was a great 1-2 punch. But we were a pass-heavy offense, right? That wasn't surprising. And a big part of that was our defense struggled a little bit and giving up, a good amount of points. So we kind of got in some of these shootouts. But when you go to the Big Ten, it is a run-first style of conference, right? A defense first, but then when you go to the offensive side of the ball, you look at Michigan, right? They had a game, I think, this year against Penn State, maybe where J.J. McCarthy threw the ball 10 times or threw for 60 yards, and they ended up winning that game, right? Penn State's the same way. They love to run the football. Wisconsin, they're known for running the football. Some of the great all-time running backs at the college level have gone to Wisconsin. So it's not a pass-heavy offense, and that's going to be so interesting. I'm glad this question was asked, and we can get into this more as we get to our preparing for the offense or preview the offense, defense, and the schedule and all that later on. But it's going to be interesting to see how these Pac-12 teams coming over to the Big Ten is going to change. Yeah, maybe some of the defensive schemes when they play us, or was Michigan playing Washington a little glimpse of how these Big Ten defenses are going to play USC and Oregon and and all these teams coming from the Pac-12, and how Coach Riley and his staff may change some of their play calling on the offensive side of the ball, going against some of these better defenses. And in my opinion, you have to be able to run the football to be successful in at any level of college football or in any conference. So I would love to see a little bit more, maybe, and I don't want to say run first. I think we're going to continue to be an air raid type of offense, but I'd love to see that balance. And I think when we were best this year, and we talked about it before, is when we took a lot of that pressure off of Caleb, and he didn't have to be Superman, but he had that great combo with Marshawn Lloyd, and that really opened up the play action passing as well. But yeah, it's night and day in my opinion, Pac-12 to Big Ten. But it's going to be interesting to see when these teams play each other year in and year out how that changes.
Do you think for the first season or a couple seasons, the more West Coast offenses are going to have an advantage? Like, are we going to see Big Ten defenses kind of evolve?
I think they're going to have to. Now, obviously, you have a scheme in place. This is what you do. This is the type of defense you run. This is the type of offense you run. But you adapt to who you're playing, right? And we've talked about that before in the preview episodes, is you're not going to say, hey, this is what we run. We're doing it against all 12 teams we play this year, right? We're going to change our game plan a little bit here and there. We're going to add or take out some stuff depending on who we're playing because you game plan for your opponent. I don't know how that's going to go. It's going to be interesting, right? Now, obviously, we start out with LSU. SEC is a little bit more pass-heavy, in my opinion. Jaden Daniels just won the Heisman Trophy there at LSU. So I expect that game to be a little bit more maybe of a shootout or a pass-heavy game. But then when we play Michigan, when we play Penn State, when we play Wisconsin, Minnesota, all these different Big Ten teams, in my opinion, it's going to be a little bit more of this game's going to be one up front. We're going to have to run the football. We're going to have to establish the line of scrimmage, and then we can start throwing the ball over your head. But most importantly, being able to throw the football in this conference, have to protect.
Yep.
A lot of great pass rushes, a lot of great defensive coordinators that dial up these blitzes, that bring secondary pressures. So it's going to be there's going to be a huge adapting period when we get to that conference. But Lincoln Riley is one of the best offensive play callers in the entire country. So I know him and his staff will be ready to go.
Shavira said, how do you measure Cliff Kingsbury's contributions to the team this season, and in what way can it be evaluated? The boring answer is we can't.
Yeah, you really, I mean, outside of what Lincoln says and the coaches say, you really can't. There's no statistic or anything that's measurable about that. But
because it's not like he's a position coach. We would have to be in the
Now, he
rooms.
was hands-on for the later part of the season, right, or the bowl game. Is that true? Or because I know Taylor Mays got elevated.
He did not get elevated, no.
Cliff did not. So he was still the same
there
role.
wasn't an opening on that side of the ball.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it's probably, in my opinion, the most impact that he had was obviously in the meeting room. But in the staff meetings with Lincoln, bouncing ideas off each other, because Cliff's not just some guy they brought on randomly. He was a very successful head coach at both the NFL and the college level at a point in time too. So I think his most important contributions to this team were in those staff meetings, bouncing ideas off of Lincoln or helping Lincoln maybe see some stuff when he gets that head coach tunnel vision that they all get, helping him, giving him some other ideas that they work together on.
In the same way, we heard from both Caleb and Miller that Cliff was kind of like a liaison for for Riley, in the sense that when he does have to wear that head coaching hat, which is all the time, but like when he is involved in more high level
special teams,
things,
defense, can't just look at the offense all day. Absolutely, it's
Cliff
nice to
was
have
kind
that.
of a brain that could kind of handle things in the interim. So
yeah, and
that's
both,
one way.
both from the coach Mike Leach, one of the greats, the coaching tree. So they obviously have the same philosophy on a lot of things. So yeah, and do we know? I might be putting you on the spot. I don't know if we can talk about this, about Cliff's future here. Has anything been said?
No, we don't know anything. We have seen reports. Just anyone who owns a Twitter account that like he's been interviewing with other jobs, but I have no inside info in that regard.
Yeah, if we can, that'd be awesome to keep him. If not, wish him all the best of luck.
Mm-hmm. We had a question from Louie who said, "Are Cobb and Gentry returning next year?" Now, this is something where we haven't heard from them. There was a cryptic tweet from Gentry the night of the Holiday Bowl where he thanked USC for everything. What that means, I don't know. We might get more clarity when we talk to Riley on the second signing day, but TBD.
I'm not reading into those anymore either.
Really?
Well, we saw Tackett. Tackett posted
it's a good point.
Year 1 highlights with the Trojan sword, and I'm like, heck yeah, man, we're keeping him. And then a day later, you're like, hey, by the way, Tackett's entered the transfer portal. And I'm, shoot, okay, well, I just thought he was staying, whatever. But it's tough. That's college football nowadays, though. Until it's official, or it's word of mouth, or it comes from the source of either the player, or they tweet, I am leaving, or I am entering the transfer portal, my speculation's out the window. I'm not going to guess anymore. But yeah,
that's fair.
Would love to have him back. Would love to have Cobb back as well. I think two players that can continue to improve and help this defense.
We got a question from Jeff who said, do you know if Taylor Mays is still on the staff? Now, we've gotten this question a lot, so I finally asked around. He is still on the staff at the time of this recording.
Let's go.
In the role that he was prior to Grinch being let go.
Okay.
So kind of like I think he was I don't want to say grad assistant. He was some type of assistant. QC? GA? I don't know. Sorry, Taylor. But he's still on the staff. That is the main point.
Yeah, I hope he stays too. And just, hey, and bowl game, got to give him credit. He coached the secondary that game. And I should have said that earlier in the episode. He got elevated to on-field coached the secondary for that game, and they played phenomenally. And you're missing Kalen Bullock, who's your best safety out there, and yet Bryson Shaw played well. Max Williams for his last game played well. Jalen Smith, who's a hybrid, he played in that nickel position, but played phenomenal. And then some of the younger guys at corner played well as well. So, you got to give Taylor credit for that, and 100%. I love that question, and hopefully he sticks around. I'm a huge fan of Taylor Mays. That was kind of my up-and-coming years as well as a USC fan, watching him fly around. And before, he's one of the main reasons, too, that the targeting and the calls have changed the way they are.
Yes.
But he was a lot of fun to watch fly around and hit people and just his size and his speed combined. But I would love to see him a part of the staff next year.
Josh said, how excited are both of y'all for year 2 of Zachariah Branch?
I'm excited. My only thing with that, and if you watch the Trojan Tailgate and some of my offensive game plans, I would love to find, outside of kick and punt returns, I just would love to find more ways. Now, I know teams are going to key on him. It's like the Adoree Jackson rule. Like, if he's on the field, you got to watch out. He can hurt you from anywhere. But I would love to see him get more touches in the games. I love the Notre Dame game, and I did this in my breakdown, to where we put him at running back, and it was spread everyone out. We'd go 4-5 wide, spread everybody out, turn, and hand the ball to Zachariah, and it was like a punt return. It was 5 defenders in the box, 5 offensive linemen, and he picks up 20 yards on a run. Then we put him back there as a decoy, fake the run to him, guys open and flying around out there. Then we had another couple times, put him in slot, just moving him around, finding ways to get him the football. But in the bowl game, 2 touches, 9 yards outside of punt and kick return. A couple games, he had 1 catch, 1 big play here and there. I would just love to see him more involved in the offense for how much he is out there. And Lincoln Riley, who's the best in the country at finding mismatches and getting his playmakers involved. But I can't wait to see that more of an offensive aspect that he can bring to this team outside of special teams.
Yeah, and I hope to see in year 2 like that sophomore kind of knowledge and judgment. You have 1 year playing under your belt, like maybe when to field it, when to not. Like I think,
and that's a great point. You say that too is not putting too much on his plate.
Sure,
he's doing punt return, he's doing kick return. Maybe there were times where, hey, we're not going to give him the whole playbook and make him learn everything because he wears so many hats on this team.
Yeah.
Let's put him out there for special plays. But either way, yeah, like you said, that sophomore year is going to be fun to watch, and he's going to be a lot of fun to watch this offseason as well.
For sure. We had a question from Corey who said, why do we struggle with getting the big, mean bodies in the trenches? And then I'm going to say somewhat related. Kevin said, what changes do you think are coming for the portal and NIL? Do you think it will end up being more regulated, and if so, how? And I'm combining these two questions, even though they are technically not related, because it feels, and we've talked about this before,
they're hand in hand.
It's a wild, wild west.
Yeah.
It just feels like a whole new era of recruiting and where players are going. I mean, look at Ohio State. They have
Alabama.
It's insane.
As soon as Saban leaves, which I understand, coach leaves, but
the portal opens up for 30 days.
Oh, my gosh.
Washington, Arizona.
We had the border
all
leaves.
Of those factors. There's so many things that is just making this feel like such a new era of college football.
Florida State.
Yeah.
A lot of their players are leaving too because of what happened. It's insane. Now, two parts to that. Now, the first part, the first question, yes, I think NIL recruiting, the transfer portal, NIL is a big part of that. Guys wants to come play. But you have to understand, O-line, D-line aren't going to get as many deals as skill players, right? So I think a big part of that is this defensive staff going out there, being aggressive, doing those at-home visits. Josh Henson, like you said, saw him in Salt Lake, being aggressive, showing presence, saying, hey, we're going to the Big Ten, we're building something, and like I said, we want to be successful in the Big Ten. It starts from the inside out. It starts from the trenches, and what I mean by trenches, O-line, D-line, out, especially in that conference. And if you want to be successful at high-level college football, you have to have a dominant offensive line and a dominant defensive line. That's where the difference is seen, and we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like you said, the NIL, that does play a factor. There are players who even flip maybe the day or two before. We saw Oregon last year. Got some players to flip right before some of these NIL deals. We have to be more aggressive in the NIL program. But at the end of the day, I love that players are getting the opportunity to get paid. We just have to find a new way to do it. It's too difficult, and you lose the importance of college football, the rivalries, all these things, because it means nothing. Guys are there for 1 year and they're gone. Like who especially get to the NFL, like what school do you represent? Maybe if you transferred once, like Caleb, right? He said his thank you to Oklahoma, said his thank you to USC, right? Both those schools had an impact on the player and the person that I am today. Great. When you're a 4 different schools in 4 years guy, like, do you think all 4? Do it's just crazy where your allegiance, there you go, lies, where that is. And I'm not saying that's super important, but while you're playing, it's tough for fans to get fully supportive of a team or a roster knowing in 8 months' time it's going to be completely different, year in and year out.
Yeah, no, and
completely different.
We exactly. We said it, I think, 2 episodes ago. And one of us said it off the cuff of like college football is on its way to losing its soul. And like I've said it ever since then because I feel like it really captures it. I mean, to be honest, part of the reason why I've never really been a big college basketball fan is like the one and done.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up with things when it changes so rapidly. And it feels like that's the same thing that's happening with college football. And like there's just so much tradition and pride that happens in college football, so much more than in my opinion, the NFL. It's just different. And to me, and you can correct me on that if you think I'm wrong, but
no.
To me, like, you're losing that because guys aren't there for more than a year or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. But I will say this, too. I had a conversation with a coach recently. I won't say where and I won't say when this was, but I had a conversation with a coach who had an idea on all this, and it was probably the best one that I've heard. I don't want to say his name. I don't know if he wants on record or any of that, but I'll kind of ad-lib. But the way that he spoke about it, and it doesn't have to be exactly what he's saying, but a form of this, and you've talked about the commissioner, like Chip Kelly talked about having a commissioner like they do in the NFL, or someone that overlooks making football its own separate
entity.
Outside of all the other college athletics. But he was saying that make it like a contract system like the NFL, right? And I like that, is where as a freshman or as a high school senior going to your freshman year, you sign a 2-year contract. Lock in 2 years, right? You're locked in for 2 years no matter what, okay? Sign that 2-year contract at this NIL price or at this whatever. Then after 2 years are up, the school can decide, or 3 or 1 or whatever, at least a contract, but 1 kind of defeats the purpose. But 2-year contract, and then after that 2 years are up, then you decide, we want to re-sign you as a contract, and they'll honor your scholarship, but do you want to re-sign? Or if you want to transfer, you have to go sign another 2-year contract elsewhere to play your junior, senior year. And then after that, if you have another year eligibility, you have an option to sign a 1-year graduate contract. So you play 1 more year, and those are set in stone. But now that I'm saying it out loud, the kind of contradicting part of that is you look at the college football world, say I sign a contract to go play for Nick Saban 2 years, and after 1 year, he's gone. Say I go sign a contract for 2 years at Washington and go play for Kalen DeBoer, who just went to the national championship, and now he's gone. So that's where I struggle with it a little bit, and I've thought about that before, but just saying it out loud kind of made me think, like, if coaches can just up and leave, Jim Harbaugh just won a national championship, or I'm sorry, DeBoer didn't win, but went to the national championship. Jim Harbaugh wins the national championship in Michigan. Guys are freshmen, just signed to play for him, and now he's gone, goes to the NFL. Now you have no idea. A guy could come in that you may never want to play for, right? Or that you may not get along with, or your scheme doesn't fit, or your play style, and now you're locked into a contract. So I don't know. We're spitballing here. That's what we can do. It's the off season. We've got to find stuff to talk about, but it's tough. College football is changing. But there are a lot of coaches that do the best for them and their family. It's tough to tell the players, hey, you can't do the same.
It's hard. Like, my only real thoughts on this, besides like just outside of speculating, is like, I don't currently like it, and I would like something to change.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I can really add to the conversation. I don't know how, as you just mentioned, it's Pandora's box. It's a labyrinth. I don't know how you do all this and make all parties happy.
I think, and that's why I brought that up, I think the contract idea would be best with clauses maybe in it, but
then you're in like a whole new stratosphere of what.
And do you contract walk-ons? Do you contract guys that aren't NILs? Like, who do you contract?
And then, like, if you're in a legitimate contract, like, is academics part of that contract?
And then you got to get lawyers involved and all that if you break, like, if there's a breach in that.
There's a ton of stuff.
Maybe not a contract, but like a commitment for 2 years. You know,
written down.
That
like you sign,
which is a contract. But we're not calling it that.
Yeah,
a written agreement.
Yes,
but. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. I'd love to hear everyone else's take as well. I mean, if you've got any ideas, it's going to be fun. Obviously, you hear it all over the country. Different people coming up with ideas and how to fix it and how to change it. But I'm with you. College football is losing that vibe, that meaningfulness that it had for so long.
Yeah. And
I know everything's going to change and adapt, and you have to keep with it or you're going to get left behind. I get that, especially as a coach, but it's just tough as a fan, like I said, to support these guys who are only going to be here for 6 months. And then, they're gone. And it's like, dang, man, like I really like that guy. And he played great, but now he's leaving because he got offered more money elsewhere, or he knows he can go make more money elsewhere. Even these quarterbacks that play at these lower levels who do a great job for their school and then they go to a higher place and they leave, it's tough. It is. It's tough as a fan to be supportive of these players, but you also have to understand these coaches that are leaving are doing the same thing. So it's you don't want to take away from the players and put them at a disadvantage as well.
It's weird times.
I think players should always be put first, though, in my opinion. I'm a former player. I get that. I love NIL. I love the idea of all of it. I love the transfer portal to an extent, but there needs to be a better way of it happening, I guess, if you will.
Agreed. 100%. Okay. G said, what excites you more, the known allure of the Big Ten or the unknown of it all?
I don't know. I think I'm going to go known.
Okay.
I'm excited for the rivalries. I'm excited to play Michigan. I'm excited to play Penn State. Obviously, again, my wife graduated from Penn State, so we got a new little in-house rivalry. But yeah, I'm excited, and all the schools in the Big Ten. I'm just excited, looking forward to that. But then the other side of it, the unknown of what are we going to look like in year 1, year 2, year 5?
Yeah.
How is this team going to continue to grow in the Big Ten? Is it the right move? Conference-wise, are we going to win conference championships there? Is it going? What's going to happen? Obviously, there's no other decision to be made because the Pac-12 dissolved. But there's just so many unknowns that make me excited.
Yeah, I want to have a lame answer and say both, but part of me thinks maybe the known allure, like the Big Ten.
I just said both.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, you are lame.
You just lame me. All right, continue.
Well, you said you kind of went this way, and then you went that way.
I did both.
You did both.
And then you immediately were like, I don't want to be lame and say both here.
Okay, that wasn't a shot to you. But like, you didn't directly say both. I was about to say direct.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead. But it is kind of both.
It is both, yes. That's my short answer. My long answer is that I haven't really traveled or done much interaction or previewing of Big Ten schools outside of Penn State and the Rose Bowl.
I'll tell you right now, I'm absolutely going to a game at the Big House.
Yes.
And I think that'll be and fun story about that too. Quick, I don't mean to interrupt you.
You're totally
but
good.
You got me excited. Is at the Holiday Bowl, right, with the DirecTV thing I did.
Yeah.
Barry Sanders was with us. Who, by the way, if you are a fan of Barry Sanders, I know there's like legends of games at all sports that sometimes that guy doesn't sign autographs for kids or he doesn't.
Yeah.
Barry Sanders is the most down to earth, like super famous, legendary player, the most down to earth, coolest, just laid back person I've ever been around with that type of status, right? We're talking Barry Sanders. Like, he's one of the greatest running backs of all time, probably the best running. I mean, you got Emmitt Smith, Walter Payton, Gale. Like, there's a lot of names you could put in that category, but he is one of the greatest running backs of all time. And we're sitting in this story will tie in a second, I promise. I'm just talking about Barry Sanders later. I don't get like starstruck very often either.
No, I know, and it was fun watching you get starstruck.
And you saw me on the field.
Yeah.
This is going to tie into Michigan, I promise, at some point. But on the field, when we first get there, and the lady from my agency's like, "Hey, it's you." I won't say her name either because I'm not going to throw her under the bus. But it was hilarious. She's like, "It's you, Leinart, and Barry." And I'm like, "Barry?" And I think I told you the story. And I'm like, "Barry." And she's like, "My dad was mad. I didn't know who it was." And she's awesome. This girl that she works for, and she handles everything. And she goes, "Yeah, Barry. He played running back. My dad was mad. He didn't know that I didn't know who he was." I'm like, "Barry Sanders?" She's like, "Yeah, Sanders, the Sanders guy." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, Barry Sanders is going to be with you guys." I'm like, "All right." I didn't know this going up to the event. Sure enough, like 2 minutes later, up walks Barry Sanders. And I'm just, when I was here at SC, I was fortunate enough to hang out with all the country. Like, I got really close friends with Luke Bryan, Lee Bryce, Kenny Chesney, all those guys. Got to hang, Cole Swindell, got to spend a lot of time with those guys. Phenomenal people. But like, never got the starstruck. Barry Sanders walked up, and I was, how you doing, Mr. Sanders? Like, just a little nervous. But fast forward, we do the whole event, and we're taking photos with these fans at our first thing we go to. And there's like a ton of SC fans that walked up. They're like, "Hey, Matt and Cody, like, can we take a picture with the quarterbacks?" But then there's fans that have like Lions gear on. And me and Matt are like, and their DirecTV is telling us like, "Hey, you guys all three are in every photo." These people walk up, Lions fans, and are like, can we get a photo of just Barry? And we're like, me and Matt are like, yes. Like, I would want the same thing. It's Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
But Barry's like, no. This is Cody Kessler and Matt Leinart. Like, you guys get in here. They're just, and we're like, Barry, it's fine. I appreciate what you're doing, but you're good, man. I promise. He's like, all right, guys. Well, you guys get in here, and they had Lions gear on and stuff. But then we get to the game, and we're sitting there, and this is when the game started. We go up to the booth, and there's like a row in the suite in the back, and there's a row in the front. And the back row is already taken up, and then I sit by myself in the front row, and literally there's 10 seats by 10 seats on each row. And I'm sitting by myself, and I'm just watching the game, just kind of started, and down comes Barry by himself, and he goes, "Hey, can I sit here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Sits right next to me, and for the next hour, just over an hour, we talk football.
Oh my gosh.
And he was like a dad, just wanting to, like, he was, "Hey, tell me about this Miller quarterback. Tell me about, tell me about,
Did you go into podcast mode with Barry Sanders?
I mean, we're just talking, but I'm asking him questions like, "What do you think?" And just, "What do you think of this? What do you think of that?" Just picking his brain. He's telling me stories about his days and
oh my
just
gosh.
the most down-to-earth, cool. And then I posted a photo on my Instagram of me talking to him. And Matt Leinart actually took the photo. me and Barry are talking. He took it from behind, like the seat behind, and Leinart takes it and sends it to me. And he's like, "You're welcome." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm printing that out, and that's going up in the office. Like, that's an all-timer." Like, me talking. I posted on my Instagram story, but yeah, he just the most down-to-earth.
That should have been a post to the feed.
I posted us three on my Instagram feed, which I haven't posted in 5 years. So
I know. I was shocked.
But yeah, so we talked for like an hour, and he was just, and then asked me about my days playing, and I'm like, dude, like, and it wasn't like he was just like, "What'd you think?" And then like, not like, like he was wanted to talk, like, was so intrigued to the conversation, just so down to earth. And then his agent comes up and he signs like a bunch of Panini playing cards, or whatever cards they were, and like kids were like, "Hey, Barry," and he's like, "Here, take a card," like just handing them out, like,
that's so sweet.
So, anyways, finally, let's tie the story in.
Okay.
So then I'm leaving, and he lives in Michigan still.
Okay.
So he's obviously played for Detroit, legendary, lives in Michigan, and he said, him and his agent were, as we were leaving, I was like, "Hey, if you come to a game in Michigan, reach out," because he followed me on like Instagram, Twitter, all that. He's like, "Reach out to me, and you can sit with us at a game or something." So I say that, and I just thought of that when I said I'm going to the Big House. So
wow,
I will absolutely be in Michigan when they play
Makes sense.
And a humble brag, I'm reaching out to Barry Sanders, but he was, I tell that story, just he's one of the coolest. I'm sorry, I got way off track on the question
totally
there.
Fine.
I feel like this is an off-season story episode, but
I know, it is.
Just one of the coolest people ever, but that's another reason to be excited to go watch a game at the Big House.
Yes. Now I have to tell my story of you fangirling because for some reason you were in the team hotel prior.
Yeah. That's where we met at.
I came out of the elevator and I didn't even know you were going to be there. And so I just see you and you're like, and so I'm talking to you and then like, I'm like, what are you doing here? And you're like, oh, DirecTV. And then you go, look, it's Barry Sanders behind me.
Barry Sanders here.
You were like, I've never seen
I'm telling you, I don't, and like, I like good friends, like going to their house, swimming, hanging out with Luke and Luke Bryan and Kenny Chesney and on stage talking to him afterwards, just which is cool. Like I never got that starstruck, like, just when you see like a legend of the game.
You were like a little kid, yeah.
Like it's Barry Sanders. Like I'm sure a lot of football fans will relate.
Yeah.
Like it was cool. And I wasn't like, I'm saying that to you.
You're cool though.
I didn't go up to like, cool. Hey Barry, like, being all weird and stuff. Like I know how to handle those situations. But it was one of those things where I'm like, that's freaking Barry Sanders, man. That's pretty cool. It's a cool story. No. And in that photo Matt took, like that's gonna be a cool story or a cool photo one day to go up in the office. But yeah, again, to that point, I'm going to Michigan. Hopefully I get to sit with Barry and watch the game. I mean,
I was understanding why you would go to the Big House, but now I really understand.
Yeah, they said we're leaving, we're parting ways, and he's, hey, great talking, you had a great time, and you ever come to a game in Michigan when SC plays in Big Ten, you let me know, you can come sit with us.
Goodness.
I said, yes, sir, Mr. Sanders, I'll be there.
That's the only answer that you should have.
Yeah.
We had a question from Tony. It's an interesting one, but he said, stupid uniform question. Miller wears a jersey with sleeves that are tucked and snug, while Caleb and all QBs before him wore a jersey that has loose sleeves. Is it based on QB preference, or is it a QB tradition thing at SC to wear jerseys with loose sleeves?
Preference. I think when I was there, I think there's 3 options. You can have the loose ones that I had, where it's still like short, but it's loose. You can have the snug ones. Or you can have the liner days, like the sleeve. Remember Matt's ones that were like almost like a T-shirt?
Yeah.
So those are so it's all preference.
Okay.
You can either wear the shorter ones, but I did the looser ones just because a little more range of motion.
Okay. Can you actually feel like the elastic?
Yeah, they would. So I would wear it. So what I would do is I would get the looser, just a little bit looser ones, and then I would sometimes cut right here. But Tino and Pops and all them down in the
equipment
room when they were there did a great job of, whatever you said. Like as a quarterback, your sleeves are very important, right? You're throwing with your arm.
Yeah.
So they do a good job of loosening the. I don't know who stitched the jersey, so whoever did that also did a phenomenal job. But they would loosen that area. But yeah, it's all preference, whatever one you like.
We have 2 questions looking ahead to 2024. First one is from Manny, who said, which position group are you concerned most about going into the 2024 season?
I mean, I just have to stick with what I am. Like quarterback is a little. Just depth-wise.
The unknowns.
Yeah, it's unknown. Like, obviously, I'm not concerned because I think Miller's going to do a really good job, right? And he did a great job of in the bowl game, we talked about all that, getting that momentum going. But we don't have a quarterback for this class coming up, or the one we just signed. We don't have a quarterback there. We obviously lost Caleb. And then, some transfer news that we can't talk about till official. So we'll get to that. So stay tuned for that. We know. Trust me, we know. We just can't. Yeah. We're affiliated with the school, so we got to wait till it is official.
Signed, yes. Or else it's a violation.
Yes.
So we have to be boring.
Yeah.
Apologies.
No, but the depth there for me is a little concerning, right? And there was some, we offered this guy. There was some speculation about this guy coming. This guy, obviously, like Riley said, Miller scared a lot of those guys off. But at the end of the day, the depth there for me is just a little concerning. Not necessarily the guys that we have there, but the depth-wise is, knock on wood, but college football, NFL, any level, you're a play away from a guy being out and 2 plays away from being on your 3rd string. So, and I learned that my rookie year in the NFL was RG3 got hurt game 1, Josh McCown gets hurt game 2, and I'm starting as a rookie, which was supposed to be a redshirt year, game 3. So those things happen. It's the NFL. Or it's football. It's going to happen.
Jay said, what do you see as the ceiling and the floor in 2024?
That's a tough one. I mean, that's a great question, and we could probably do a full episode on ceiling and floor, which would be write that down, idea later on. But I'll be quick. I mean, I'll just there's so many unknowns, and this is a huge offseason, and like I said, the biggest in recent memory for USC. And it's not like we have a cupcake preseason schedule, right? We start with LSU at a mutual site, and then like I said, I think we go Utah State, and then it's straight into conference play, correct?
Yeah,
I think we have 2 byes too, right?
I believe there's a bye on September 14th, and then you go straight to Michigan, at Michigan.
So I'm going to say floor, say 8-4. I want to say it is. It's going to be tough. It's a transition. Obviously a lot of new faces, new staff, new coaching. It's going to be some learning. So that's the floor for me. Ceiling is competing maybe for a Big Ten championship. I don't know if college football playoff. Now, obviously, I want to be. If you ask me on a neutral site or a different show, I'd be biased and say Trojans all the way. We're going to win the whole thing. I'd show my Trojan pride. But being honest with myself, I think we could possibly compete for a Big Ten championship, which leads you into the college football playoff. But I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. So ceiling, I'll say 10-2 regular season at the end of the year. So 8-4 floor, ceiling 10-2. Is that good enough to get to the Big Ten championship? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question. The problem is I don't even feel like I can answer this properly until at least maybe the first week of spring camp.
And the roster's set.
Yeah, I
even
need
fall
to
camp,
see
even
more.
week 1 of fall camp, it would be.
Honestly, though,
but
I was
right
trying
now,
not to. Yeah,
right now that would be my probably answer if you had to have me answer right now.
Okay, we got a question from Rama who said, "How excited are you about the women's basketball team?" Very excited. I'm glad
How
to
about
see
Juju Watkins too?
Taking care of business.
She is
as
I
advertised.
watched her interview with Coach Lindsay the other day too.
Oh yeah.
After they beat UCLA, which that game was awesome. I've never met her before, but I love her attitude.
She's great.
And I love too, you ask great questions and she you could tell how excited she is about the program. That's the type, and I guarantee you that's why you have success at those levels though at college, because you can see a coach that loves talking about her players, and the players probably, I'm sure they love playing for her.
Oh, they were. I had to be like, can you please stop hugging coach? Because I need to interview.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love Juju was I think cramping after the game or something on the ground.
Yeah, she was cramping, but still wanted to yell fight on.
Yeah. No, that
Unreal.
It was awesome. But just watching the energy that Coach Lindsay had and the team and what Juju's doing as a freshman and the praise that she's gotten from the great Cheryl Miller was phenomenal with the stuff that, just you can feel that buzz around USC women's basketball right now. And it's so cool to watch it, and it's you start putting them up there with the South Carolinas, with the Iowas, with the Stanfords. They're entering that category right now, and that's what Lindsay was saying is people are starting to recognize we're a national contender. We're not just we're a good Pac-12 team, we're getting better. We are on the radar for a national contender.
The insane part is how strong the Pac-12 conference is right now.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, after the UCLA game, they dropped a game to Utah and then Colorado. Colorado, the number 3 team in the nation, they went wire to wire with. But
Utah's good too, though.
They didn't have an answer for.
Yeah.
I almost said big men, but big women. But
what's her name too?
Alyssa Peely.
Yeah, Peely. I watched her go for 30-something against South Carolina.
Points. Yeah, no, against USC. But she played.
She went for 30+ earlier in the year too against I think either South Carolina or Iowa. Goes for a 30-something also. She went for 37 against us?
I believe so, yes. I know. And she used to play for USC, and her brother's Brandon Peely, who played for USC.
Yeah. That's that Peely?
Yes.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't put that together. Oh my gosh. So she transferred from USC
to Utah.
And
it's just been going off since
But you know what though? That speaks volumes. That's again Pac-12 too. I mean, it's
insane.
It's
Last
crazy.
year they're going out strong.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, so that trip has been interesting, and we'll see how the team recovers.
At the end of the day, it's yes, regular season is important. Yes, conference championships are important, but until you get to March, until you get to that tournament, that's when things happen. And men's side too. We're close. We're obviously dropping some games, and it's frustrating. Though. Yeah, a lot of injuries, but the hype around USC, I want to say basketball as a whole, but women's basketball in general, and selling out, they set the attendance record, right? For Galen against. I think they sold out the men's game this weekend as well.
Did they? Yeah.
I saw, but what an exciting time for USC athletics as a whole.
For sure. Really quickly too, I had a little bit of a Barry Sanders moment because I got to interview Cheryl Miller at the game.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I interviewed her at the Trojan tailgate.
Right.
How cool
I was
is
so
she?
jealous you guys.
How cool is she?
She's so cool.
She was like one of the. I know she did. She was an analyst for a long time, but she was chopping it up. I've never seen a guest handle Sua Cravens. Love Sua, but Sua, if you're not ready, Sua will get you. He'll.
If your brother's Reggie Miller, come on,
yeah, no doubt.
They have a.
Yeah, but Sua. I'm just saying, Sua's go. If you don't believe me, go check Sua's Twitter. He'll go toe to toe with anybody.
Sua's first question to her was who's your top 10?
Yeah, LeBron or Mike or Michael Jordan.
Yes,
but yeah, no, that's awesome.
She
is
so
phenomenal.
Cool, so gracious. Wanted to meet my interns. Gave each of us a pep talk.
How cool.
Just so cool. And so I just had to give her a shout out because, again, when you meet the legends and they actually live up to it.
Exactly. And not only that, they're like that type of person, right? I've met like, and I'll never name it, but I had an instance when I was in Vegas and I was playing AAU basketball, and there was a legendary basketball player there, and we asked for autograph, pictures, big timed no, get away. And it stuck with me. I was maybe 10, 11.
Wow.
Never forgot it to this day. So it means
like
so much more to me.
Yeah.
And that's why when I was here at USC, I would always stay. They'd blow the horn, hey, autograph's done, get off the field. I would always say, I'm good. Like, it's fine, I'm good. I'll be a little late I'll rush through my shower and get to meetings. Or I won't shower before meetings. I'm staying out and taking these photos and doing the extra because I've seen both sides of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's cool. But again, so excited. That's a great question. I love talking about other sports as well.
Right. Alan said, what snacks/drinks are you bringing/buying to keep you fueled during the game? It's a marathon game day
Yeah.
And I'm not even playing.
I'm going to say, water for me, really.
Yeah. You're pretty simple in that sense.
I try
bring
not
a
to
lot
do a
of
ton
caffeine.
of sugar.
Yeah.
See, I don't do caffeine at all.
I don't know how.
Yeah. I drink coffee
you
a
stay
little
up
bit
late,
in
too.
New England. New England and Philly is when I drink a little bit of coffee. Outside of that, though, I'll drink a little bit here and there. Like if like my wife always makes her coffee at home, or I'll make it for her either way. But when we go to Starbucks, maybe I'll dabble and get something.
In
but
caffeine.
I probably haven't had caffeine in like 3 months, maybe.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's good for you.
Yeah.
I've been trying to now. It's off season.
I'm all water and maybe a Gatorade here and there, but there's so
Okay.
much sugar in Gatorade too. Unless I'm working out, I try not to.
Oh, smart.
So
Gatorade Zero.
yeah.
But yeah, no, and then just like protein bars, like, cause I don't go up to the press box just because it takes forever. So I'm on the field and everything's in my backpack.
Yeah, so you don't get to do it. See,
when I go through security, I'm like, sorry.
I watched the game with you guys on the first quarter.
Right.
Then after that, I go up to the club seats and
Yeah,
go
you
to
live the
town.
lavish
Go to
life.
town on the
Yeah.
on the concession stands there, so I get to eat some actual food. But yeah, you're like a 6 hour, 7 hour, probably no actual meal type
It's
game day.
longer than that. And shouts to my
Really?
interns because they pull those days too. Yeah. It's like 12 hours.
Oof.
It's a little brutal, but for the love of the game.
Yeah, there you go.
We had a question from both Cameron and Joe who said, who do you want to get to the Super Bowl?
Who do I want or who do I think?
Both. I will modify.
Okay, I'm going to go want AFC. I'm going Baltimore. I want Lamar to win one, and thank Baltimore. I think Baltimore, obviously the Chiefs are going to be competitive year in and year out. They have good players, but I think Baltimore is going to win that game, and I want them to win that game as well. I want to see Lamar win one. He's awesome. He's so much fun to watch. Obviously Nelson as well, Aguilar on that team. So I'm a little biased, but yeah, I'm going Baltimore, AFC. NFC, I'm torn.
Okay.
I'm very torn because I think is going to win. I think the 49ers are just too tough. I think they're a very, very good football team. Defensive, awesome. There's really no flaws in their game, and Brock Purdy is finally getting the recognition he deserves. He's been the game manager title, maybe he's playing very good football, very efficient. He doesn't push the ball down the field. He doesn't have the arm talent, all this. Say whatever you want. He's winning football games, and he's doing it at a very high level, right?
Yeah.
So I think 49ers are going to win. Though, I'm torn, right? Because I wouldn't mind the 49ers winning. I think NFC, you can't go wrong because I've known Jared for a long time, Goff. So I'd love for Jared to go, but also Amon-Ra.
I know.
Went to USC. I never played with him, but again, he's a Trojan, so I'm going to root for him. But but then you got
Christian McCaffrey?
No.
Who are you?
Their safety, he got hurt. I didn't play with him. Very good safety. Was a Pro Bowler from USC, from 49ers.
Oh, Talanoa.
Talanoa, yeah.
I thought you were talking about the Lions.
No, sorry. I didn't play with these guys, so I didn't know them too well. But so there's SC Trojans on both. But I don't know. I'm torn. So who I think is gonna be Baltimore and the 49ers.
Okay.
In the Super Bowl. And who I want it to be is Baltimore. And I guess Detroit, maybe just because I know more people on that team. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a tough on the spot question.
Yeah, no.
But I know there's a lot of Niner fans living in California too. So
that would make sense.
I don't want to piss anybody off.
Have you seen the Super Bowl logo theory about the colors?
Don't even.
Have you?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
No. I'm
just curious.
No, I know. But this script talk has just been cracking me up all year. And Paige is like, my wife goes, because I played in the NFL. Obviously, I was a starter. I played 4 years. And she's like, is there a script? And I'm like, no, there's
like,
not.
Yeah. With you?
She's like, did you sign an NDA? Or you know, tell me. I'm like, there's not. Babe, I promise there's not a script. She's like, but would you tell me if you signed an NDA? And I'm like, I didn't sign an NDA. She's like, but you can't tell me if you signed an NDA. And I'm like, And I start
such a good
laughing. She's like,
point.
"You're laughing," but yeah, no, these theories are crazy. The color, because didn't they change the color though of the logo like halfway through the year? I saw something about that. Like it's easy.
No. Well, okay.
It's easy to say the number one seed on both sides and the best teams in the AFC and the NFC are going to go to the Super Bowl. Because I feel like I saw something about the logo changing colors like midway through the year or something.
I will say this as someone who now works in the athletic department. I now understand how really, really mundane and like boring decisions or accidents that happen somehow become like giant conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah.
Like behind the curtain, I'm in charge of posting the Thursday press conference with Lincoln Riley, which is a Zoom press conference. And there was one time where I accidentally I overclipped the clip because I record the whole like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And so there's extra filler. I clipped the presser down too close by accident. I clipped out one question. And then it became this conversation of, does USC not want this question asked? And it was like, I literally just made a mistake.
But it's a simple accident. But yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I understand now.
I'm telling you right now, there's no script. Now I'm cutting that out right now. Everyone who has that theory, now I don't want to go in.
You
know
going
what?
Back and forth.
I know. Well, you do see some games where there's calls on the field where
and
you're
like, what's happening?
Well, yeah, that was a question. That was a obvious call. Why like there? But sometimes you think like, is it just a simple mistake? But it is an entertainment business. But I'll tell you right now, that's why like some people say like so and so looked at the script and was like, oh man, I hate that. Like, why is this happening? What this and that. But like, no, there's no script. Everybody is fighting for their families. Everyone's trying to make money. Everyone's trying to win games. You win games, you get fed. You make money that way. There's no one out there who's ever going to purposely lose a game at the NFL level. I promise you, they aren't scripted.
Come back in 15 years when Cody's NDA expires.
Yeah, stop.
I'm joking.
I'll tell you right now, though, like from a player's standpoint, I'll say let me keep it at that. From a player's and coach's standpoint, every single team wants a win. There's no team or player that goes, let's come up with a script. No, everybody's fighting their tail off to win a game, to feed their families, to get a contract extension, to go to the playoffs, and win a Super Bowl.
I'm teasing you.
That is not scripted. I promise you.
We got a question from Pete.
Okay.
Who said, how would NIL affect the 18-year-old Cody's decision to attend college? Would he have attended an off-the-radar school if money was offered?
I saw this question on Twitter. I don't know because it's tough. Like looking back on it now, like, yeah, it's frustrating that we didn't I was talking to Leinart about this as well. Like the NIL would have been awesome when we were playing. Like for any former college players would say that. Would love that. Would have loved to got paid to play college football, but at the same time, would it have looked different? My journey in college football have looked different? That's where the question, because I love USC thick and thin. Like I absolutely, no matter what, am a proud Trojan. I always will be. Got to play 3 amazing years here. Obviously, I was here through the sanctions, through the loss of scholarships, through the coaching changes, through the fires, through the media circus, through all of that craziness. And I never batted an eye. I just said, hey, I'm the quarterback at USC. I'm proud to be who I am. Got to and I'm humble, but I've set some records, history books, all that stuff is such a cool thing. Now, did we win the Rose Bowls and national championships? I wish we would have. No. Did we have a lot of issues in between them that kind of affected that? Sure. But at the end of the day, like I would love to look back on it and say, it doesn't matter who else offered me what, I would have been a Trojan no matter what. And the alumni of me believes that. Now, if it's true, I don't know. It'd be tough because you see some of these kids that get offered X amount to go here who they may love, and then they get offered a crazy X amount to go here. And then they're like, okay, I'll take that for a year and then maybe end up to that school. Like that part's tough for me because of the transfer, but no, I'm gonna stick with my gut and say no matter any amount of money, I would have been a USC Trojan.
Okay.
And I would have stuck with it. Even through the first couple of years when I wasn't starting and was third string and all that, I would have stayed.
It's interesting. It's interesting just because and we've talked about this before, your era, it was like taboo to do that.
Yeah.
So
if you transferred, you had to like go down to JUCO and then
it was a whole.
Hopefully someone else offers you. Hopefully you perform at JUCO and then get an offer elsewhere, or you stay at JUCO. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a wild time, but nowadays it's not that. But I'm still sticking with my answer. I would have been a Trojan no matter what. No amount of money would have pulled me away from USC. And I'd like to believe that they would have matched that and NIL and would have wanted to keep me.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Final question is from Alan, who will get an immediate ban. No, I'm just kidding. He says, will you be buying an Ohtani Dodgers jersey this year, Keely?
Oh, this is a Keely. I will. No, maybe.
Your Dodgers.
I'll tell you what, though. My only Dodgers or recent Dodgers jerseys I have are a Seager jersey, which obviously he's not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that one hurt a little bit, and then he just went and won a World Series with the Rangers.
Yeah.
So that was a tough pill to swallow. And then I have a Clay Shaw.
Clay Shaw?
Yeah, that's his celebrity name.
Yeah.
No, Clayton Kershaw jersey. But yeah, Ohtani would be a cool one to add to the list. I know you probably won't be buying one.
You know what's weird is I was going through my photos and remembered that this past summer I got invited to a Dodgers game.
Yeah.
There were nice seats with my friends and I was like, okay, I'll go. But I'm not like really annoying person and I wore my Angels Ohtani jersey.
No.
I did. And
now joke's on you now.
I brought it on myself. I basically put the vibes into Dodger Stadium.
So we thank you for that.
You're welcome,
Yeah.
Dodgers fans.
Yeah, we thank you for that.
Alrighty, Cody, that is it. We have gone through random off-season topics, lots of questions. It was a fun episode. Glad to get up to date on some of the newsier items and get your thoughts on that. But that's all I have for this episode. Any final thoughts?
No, I that was a fun episode. I love these. Again, it's we have a little bit of where we want to go with it, but then I love the conversations and the stories we get to tell as we go through it, and the questions we get. So please keep asking questions. We love that. Sorry we've been gone for a month, but we're back. You and Dion actually did an episode.
We did.
So we haven't been gone a month, but you and I have. But and then all the giveaway stuff's done. So we are back. And then going forward, we're gonna have a more set schedule. That's the plan. I know we're kind of putting my foot in my mouth because we said that before. But either way, love doing these episodes. I'm so excited about this defensive staff. I'm so excited about Miller Moss going forward, being able to compete and go out there and be QB1 and keep fighting for that and the rest of this Trojan football team. So stay tuned for some more episodes ahead. I love you guys. I'll see you soon. Fight on. I'm out.
Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.